Bitcoin today. Not Bitcoin today. This is Bitcoin today. Not Bitcoin. Not Bitcoin today. This is Bitcoin. Bitcoin now. Get educated. And let's get that education going. This is Bitcoin. This is Bitcoin now. Don't look now, but Bitcoin is on fire. This thing is, and you keep going. You have to find something that you can trust and that trust this world, which is Bitcoin. You know, it is a asset class that protects you. Right? The U.S. federal government's on an unstable fiscal path, and the U.S. federal government's on an unstable fiscal path. You do not sell your Bitcoin. Sell your Bitcoin. You do not sell your Bitcoin. Sell your Bitcoin. This is Bitcoin today. Bitcoin today. Not Bitcoin today. Bitcoins. Not Bitcoin today. Not Bitcoin. Not crypto today. Oh, Bitcoin. This is Bitcoin today. Bitcoin today. Bitcoin today. Bitcoin today. Bitcoin today. Bitcoin today. No. Not Bitcoin today. Not close. Coins, by the way, just Bitcoin. You do not sell your Bitcoin. Sell your Bitcoin. You do not sell your Bitcoin. Sell your Bitcoin. You do not sell your Bitcoin. Sell your Bitcoin. You do not sell your Bitcoin. Sell your Bitcoin. Don't look now, but Bitcoin is on fire. This thing is, you have to find something that you can trust and that trust this world, which is Bitcoin. You know, it is a asset class that protects you. Right? The U.S. federal government's on an unstable fiscal path. The U.S. federal government's on an unstable fiscal path. What's up, Puncher?
Good morning, buddy. Another beautiful day in Hawaii.
Nice. What island?
What's that?
Oh, what island are you on?
Oh, well, Maui.
Oh, nice. Spent some time there. Been
Yeah.
going to Kauai lately, twice last year. Going to the Big Island next month.
My kids are on an eternal hunt for LeBron James, who is apparently here this week, but no official sightings. But doesn't mean we're not going to try to hunt them down. My son's really excited.
Nice. Dark side's up here. Morning, Dark.
Good morning. How you guys doing today?
Great. Omar.
What's up, brother? How are you?
I'm still recovering, man. It's been a week, but it hit me hard. That Vegas stuff. I'm not a kid anymore.
Well, get ready to do it again in
Yes,
two,
sir.
3 months.
I'm in.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun. We have a pretty nice guest list. We it's time to start putting some pressure on Dark Side because he's uncertain. So Dark, what's up, man?
I don't know, Omar, man. Isn't that 2 days before Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I mean, look, we can move it a few days before if that's gonna do it.
Well, don't move it from me. It's just that's
I mean,
that's
there's not gonna be a party without you. You have to be there.
oh come on, man. I don't even
Yeah.
part I'm not a
Lo-
partier anymore, man.
Look, Lauren's gonna be there. Poncho is gonna be there. Gary is confirmed. Fred is confirmed. Chris, Eric is there. You know, I'm sorry, man. You have to be there. There's
Hey,
no.
Dark Side, you did a pretty good job at the pleb party in Vegas, I would say.
Let's fucking go.
We'll wrap it in business if it makes it easier. Dark.
Okay, let's wrap it in
It, it-
business.
it's easy for me. I live on the East Coast, so it's a good excuse to get home and see the fam
Yeah,
for
I know.
Thanksgiving.
Oh boy. Okay, I guess I'm gonna be doing a lot of flying right before Thanksgiving.
We'll get you all set up. You can come and meet my family. We'll welcome you into our home like you welcomed us into your home, buddy.
All right. Yeah, you can take a yes from me. Thank you, Omar.
Nothing like nothing like peer pressure.
Your buddy Joe's gonna be there. You guys could have a little chat.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the spirit of détente between Trump and Elon. I've decided to have détente with Joe.
What a
What?
day! What a day yesterday, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah, what happened? What happened to our friend from last night, the Ukrainian guy? I mean, he's not Ukrainian, but he didn't show up. He's not here. I don't see him.
Nah, he's not gonna show up. But just I don't want to get into it too much, other than to say, Chris, sorry to jump on your space like that last night. But look, um, one thing about Bitcoin is that it's like a truth mechanism, right? It removes the scales from your eyes on a lot of different things. And once you understand the true motivation of the money being bad and how that affects pretty much everything, other things start to peel away and you start to scratch the surface and you realize that, a whole facade has been built up around any measure of things. And, you start to question them and those things you thought you knew and understood just kind of peel away. And when you start to question those things, people start to question you or fight back against you that you're not repeating some controlled narrative. And I won't get into it. I just jumped on a couple spaces yesterday to just talk through some things, which I thought was the idea. First, related to Elon and Trump and what that might be. I mean, everybody's trying to make sense of it and why. Elon was, look, he talked very clearly on Joe Rogan about why he supported Trump. There was an open border. They were trying to eliminate elections. They were trying to turn swing states into blue states and then pack the Supreme Court. And then that's it, man. It's like lights out. So for me, I don't like to be introduced to some MAGA person. But I saw that very clearly too, among other things. So the choice to me, and in around Bitcoin as well, in November was very, very clear. Not that I'm some blind ideologue. I'm not. Um, particularly now that I've been in Bitcoin. But then they get people on there jump up and call you a retard and you're a propagandist for Putin and you're repeating Russian talking points. I mean, does Russia put out talking points? I'm unaware. I don't get them. So it's just silly stuff like that. So I guess you need to be aware that when you start to see things and when you start to question things that other people either don't see or don't want to see, you're gonna get a lot of pushback, and that's it. No big deal. We're all big boys and girls, and we can handle it. But it was really interesting to me being in Hawaii. I asked almost everybody. My wife rolls her eyes every time. I'm like, "Hey, what do you know about Bitcoin?" Nobody, not one person, not one person. I'm walking around with a Bitcoin shirt on. Not one person says, "Hey, Bitcoin," or "Yeah, I get it," or "Yeah, I wish it." I mean, the only reaction I got twice was in a supermarket. One from the cashier, and I said, "What do you know about Bitcoin?" She goes, "I know I can't afford it." That was one. And then the other one was a very similar response, like, "Oh, I wish I had gotten in, but I can't, I can't afford that now." It's just like, man, we're 0.2% of global assets. People don't know. We know. We talk about it ad nauseum, and we try to orange pill people. But the fact of the matter is, we're just extremely early, and that's it. It's all great. I'm happy to be here because I almost feel like a bystander watching a lot of the things that are going down, whether it's Elon and Trump or what appears to be an escalation of the war in Ukraine over what? God knows what, when they need their money. I mean, Simon seems to be dead on that one. The powers that be want another $1 trillion extracted over there, and you know, that's what's going to happen. So, it's disappointing. It's amusing at the same time, but it's surreal. I'll just stop there.
let's not leave out Peter Schiff committing reputational suicide this morning.
Oh my gosh, Omar brought that up last night. I mean, holy smokes. I at the risk of I said this last night on Chris's space, at the risk of sounding sympathetic to Peter, like I understand what he might be driving at. However, some things are better left unsaid, bud, right? I mean, that was a psyop. And if you don't think these things are real, if you don't think that these honey traps that governments set up are real, look no further than Epstein or P. Diddy. Um, I know for a fact that guys who were in the DoD who went on CIA ops, which was a real problem, they mold in, they compromise these guys. I saw a guy get interrogated last year who wanted to be part of the new administration. I was flabbergasted. He got interrogated about a honey trap in Colombia. It turns out he's like, where did you meet your new wife? She's Colombian. You were married before with kids. What? How did that happen? You know, and it's just like it's devastating. So you get to see how people can very easily be
Hey,
compromised.
can somebody fill us in on what the Peter Schiff thing, for those?
Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, he put out a tweet basically saying Epstein wasn't a pedophile, that he was with 14 to 17-year-olds who are post-pubescent. And while that's criminal, illegal, and immoral, that's not the definition of a pedophile. I think that's the gist of the
Yeah,
tweet.
and he also said that their bodies are developed enough at age 14 for that to not. I mean, what the fuck? And he said that when he was in college, he was having sex with girls that were of that age, and that doesn't make him a pedophile.
I mean, it's almost too dangerous to even talk about, but yeah, a
Wow, that's crazy.
bad call, Peter.
That is something else.
So we live in a crazy, crazy world.
Yeah,
I don't want to take the topic off of Bitcoin, but man, oh man, it is great knowing that I'm more convinced than ever that we are on the right side of history, and that we're in many ways immune from the craziness that's only going to get crazier. I mean, look at the debate about, does it save 1.4 trillion or does it actually add to the deficit 2.4 trillion? And it's just such it's just such nonsense, and it's just such ledger domain at all front on all fronts that you just sit back and you go, man, I'm glad that I have an insurance policy against all this nonsense.
For sure. What's up, Taylor?
Hey, I wanted to give my 2 cents on Peter as well. To preface this, so most of you guys know I'm Mormon. Um, I have a body count of one, my wife, after marriage in my life. Um, so that's not a problem I've had, is like being out there banging underage chicks or anything. But like my perspective on it, because my personal morals, my personal perspective is that you shouldn't have sex outside the bonds of marriage. Okay, and I know that's unpopular and people think that's retarded, whatever. Like, but you know, I understand what he's driving at. I think I'm in a good position to like explain that because of my like personal life standing, and so it's like, of course, he's not like talking about banging like minors. He's just like talking about legally underage. So I don't think he was saying 14-year-olds, Omar. Like I'm guessing he's talking about
Oh
like
no, no, he
17.
did. Oh no, oh oh, no, he did. He did. He said 14 to 17. I have a
yeah,
screenshot actually.
yeah, he
I don't
did.
know if it's still there or it was deleted.
Oh
Yeah.
shit, Peter, come on, man.
Yeah, no,
Anyway,
he
it's just weird and embarrassing. The problem I have with like bagging on it all straight up or bagging on Peter for it right away is that then you're kind of becoming the Me Too people, and the Me Too
no,
people were pretty ridiculous too.
that's a really bad take, Taylor. Taylor, I
Uh,
don't know about you, but I've never had the inkling, even in college, to be with a 15-year-old or a 14-year-old.
No, I'm talking about like being an 18-year-old in college, Dark, and you're having sex with a 17-year-old. You know what I
That's
mean?
not what he said.
Like,
That's not what he said.
okay,
And even that would be
all
he
right.
wrong.
said he said I'm not defending Epstein. I'm not defending Epstein, but he had sex with teenage girls, 14 to 17, that had physically developed sexually. They were underage, so criminal and immoral.
Yeah, yeah. So that could be an 18-year-old having sex with a 17-year-old.
Yeah,
That's
or a four
underage, and
Taylor,
and
don't even go down this fucking road, man.
all right.
Just let it go, man. This is fucking disgusting. You, you break, like, as far as I'm concerned, Peter Schiff should be investigated immediately. And
No, yeah, I think you should too. Like, there's no doubt, no
and
doubt.
if he's
Yeah. Okay.
fucking, if that, like, people who think like that should be fucking ostracized and put into a fucking colony, man. Drop them in fucking Alaska, throw a cow into the yard and let them fucking kill each
No,
other.
we don't, bro. We don't want them in Alaska. Give me a break.
Yeah, well,
In the military, we would get graded on every flight in flight school, and there was one column or one subject line that you got graded on, and it was head work, right? And head work is essentially how did you assess the situation? How did you use your brain to figure things out that came up on you in the flight, right? Unexpected things. That was definitely a below average in head work on Peter's side. I'm not going to gang up on him, the guy, you know. But man, oh man, like the first rule of holes applies right there. Like when you're in one, stop digging. And in an effort to defend your
That was a
position,
poor
whatever that
choice
might
of
be, you know.
that was a poor
I'm
choice of words.
I'll tell you what, I'm gonna gang up on him. I think everybody should gang up on him, Puncher, with all due respect. Man, there is absolutely no room for this type of fucking bullshit, man. I mean, if you're talking about 14, 15, even 16, I mean, come on, man. That's absolutely insane.
Well, and you see, look, Dark, you and I both know because we've dealt with, we've had our friends who are dealing with sex trafficking and thing. I mean, it's a real problem. And I think most people are blind to how big the problem is with children being sex trafficked. It is, you know, whether you believe the Comet Pizza stories or not, it's a real problem. You've got literally millions of kids missing, sex trafficked.
I
You
mean, what do
know,
you mean if you
it's
believe the pizza stories, Puncher? These people you haven't. I mean, if you haven't read the freaking Podesta stuff, of course.
no, no, look, yeah, it's a real thing. You know, my take on that level of evil is that it's not hiding. It's so bright and in your face, if you even care to look upon it, that most people choose to look away because it's so, you know, it's so evil. They just, it's easier to pretend it's not happening. And people live in some kind of suspended cognitive dissonance about what's actually happening. And then when the bow breaks, people can say, "Oh, I had no idea." Well, man, bullshit. It's right in your face.
Hey Matt, what's going on, brother? Good morning.
Hey, hey, heavy topic, but one of the good things that I think about Bitcoin is if you think about all these hordes of bad people out there, they've been hoarding gold and they've had access, sadly, to the money printer for a very long time. So going to a store of wealth that has a pseudo anonymous, structure to it will slightly increase the likelihood that those bad guys are going to keep their money off our rails and stay on their slow speed, constantly losing power fiat engines. And so I'm all for Bitcoin going to the moon because it means those creeps don't have any power. And I think in general, writ large, that's one of the great things about Bitcoin. There's a lot of baddies that have access to both gold, paintings, all sorts of stuff that's inflating to Valhalla thanks to the central bankers. And when you introduce Bitcoin, you have a heat sink for all that inflation to go. All that heat from the inflation machines to go. So it's a very good thing, and it's very cleansing for humanity in general. So I'm excited that technology has finally come for money in a real way, and that's why I'm here because we're at that convergence point. And I think it's going to be a really good thing. We're going to be able to save for the first time thanks to Bitcoin in my lifetime. Really, like savings is largely impossible when your base money layer is running away from you at 9 to 13% a year, and so finally we've got a firm foundation to step on, which means we can build. And so that's why I'm here. Good morning to everyone.
Morning, Matt. Hey, Maryland, how you doing, bud?
Good morning. Pers- Personally, I'm happy I had Peter blocked and have for some time. I'm actually shocked that the community as a whole gives him. I understand it's like a joke constantly going back and forth between Bitcoin and gold, but gives him the airtime and the space to, and this is not Bitcoiners, but just the X community in general, to share his opinions on stuff. I mean, this seems more like a psyops and trying to normalize a pretty crappy idea.
Yeah, and silver. Look, I own a bunch of silver, so you know I'm fairly happy. I'm looking to dump it, and it's been a long haul. Holy smokes, man! I was buying silver back in the early 2000s. People telling me I'm nuts and crazy. This is pre-Bitcoin, obviously, and gold. So Peter's kind of sowing his oats now. But oh, by the way, did anybody pick up any Bitcoin yesterday at 100,000 in the $100,000 handle during the great crash of yesterday? I sure did. I saw it at 100,800. I was like, boom, buy. Um, It's funny that we haven't even talked about price. I've been on spaces, Bitcoin spaces for 4 or 5 days. No one's even mentioning price anymore. Almost like a fait accompli. Everybody understands where this train is headed, and price is almost an afterthought, which I think is new.
Punch, you know what was really interesting that I saw today? It definitely looks like the Trump organization is moving towards a Bitcoin treasury strategy. Outside of the convertible bond last week for 2.5 billion, which we haven't heard any purchase information yet. But the fact that they did a shelf offering for 12. Now that could be for something else, $12 billion. That could be for something else, but it seems like signpost are there of where everything's heading.
Marilyn, you're the first one to connect the dots for me, and I think Punch or Dark. Do you want to talk that out a little bit and how you think things are going to go down?
And I'm about ready to go into a dead spot potentially, so I might get a little shaky. I just, if I'm looking at everything, um, from all the various aspects of Dubai, kind of how the U.S. United States is basically investing with Dubai and co-investing back and forth, Dubai going in and buying a piece of Binance, the Trump organization, all their moves between the convert, between World Liberty Financial, and the fact that their communications has been less about TradFi oriented and ETH as it was. Like we all have kind of a lot of us have gone through the journey of shit coining to Bitcoin, and it seems as if that's been escalated or advanced on the side of the Trump family. It seems like the position um, between Saylor and what he's doing with the various preferred offerings that he's coming out with, between all the various Bitcoin treasury companies moving from next year. It just seems like a well orchestrated plan that's moving towards something. Once we hit the reflexivity equilibrium in Bitcoin's price, I think it goes. And I think it's just fuel for the fire. Every incremental is going to actually have a multiplier effect to the Bitcoin price. I had another theory. I was listening to Jeff Booth talk with Scott Melchior this morning before I jumped on. And, I know Jeff is really focused on kind of the transactional aspects of Bitcoin, especially around Lightning. And some of the points that he's brought up recently has been, guys, listen, like the unit of account bias, or the unit, not bias, but the unit of account isn't out of the window. He's like, I'm looking around the world, and what I'm seeing around the world is people are using this for transactional purposes. So even if you have adoption that goes wild in the United States, and you start that second part of the S curve, what's the rest of the world going to do? They're going to start transacting in Bitcoin, and that's just going to be another massive adoption. So it actually could do be attacked from a store value perspective as well as a unit of account transactional perspective in the rest of the world, which just given the scarcity of Bitcoin, you know, we we all I don't think are bullish enough on where this thing might be going, and I feel like we're about ready to hit this critical mass point. And going back to some of the comments we had before regarding press and pitch being an up, starts at municipal level with bit bonds and moves its way up versus coming from a top down approach via bit bonds in the U.S. government. This government, Trump, the family beset, with everything they're trying to do from a realignment regarding trade around the world and the deficits and the new monetary kind of system, it really looks like Bitcoin's going to be a cornerstone. Our thesis around 21 and the bit bond could be the Trojan horse starts this all. So, kind of, there's some of the ideas floating out there right now in my head. But
Yeah, 100% cutting out a little bit now, but we got enough of it to make sense of what you were saying. And I agree. I say this often. I'm on the ego death calls where we're investing in these layer two, layer three companies, and I don't think there's an appreciation in the United States for how much people who are unbanked or who are living in in regimes where your currency is debasing at such a rate that uh, you can't even like run a business or rent a room or transact on any level. Your time preference is so high that the introduction of Bitcoin or derivatives of Bitcoin through, say, Fediment are such a life changer for them. And the adoption rate, again, in Africa and the global South is so high. We don't really have an appreciation for that. I heard somebody the other day on a space say, well, Bitcoin's going to be a store of value, but as far as transactions, it's not happening. I'm like, well, it's not happening here, but it's definitely happening. You're just not privy to where it's happening. Um, hey, Eric, how you doing? Good morning, bud.
Morning, guys. Morning. Yeah, no, I agree. I talked to a couple people from foreign countries the other day, and 1,000% it's being transacted. It's being transacted here. I think the Steak and Shake CEO made that very clear that it's not only fast and effective, but also very affordable for them on the processing fees, which kills small businesses. Adoption's growing here. I will say the Steak and Shake by my house is currently the #1 Steak and Shake for Bitcoin transactions in the country. That's pretty cool. Another quick topic before we get rolling into conversation. Isn't it fascinating how oftentimes those who have weaker morals or who are blatantly accused of pedophilic activity all hate Bitcoin? It seems to be an overwhelming theme is that those in power who I won't accuse anyone of anything, but a lot of these big politicians and all these other people who've been accused of these activities, they all hate Bitcoin. Watch the narratives that go around the world. If yesterday proved one thing, it's that we are all kind of retarded monkeys that dance around based on the words of powerful people. We are completely controlled by narratives. I've been saying this since I hopped on these spaces a long time ago, is that government is nothing more than mind control that creates manufactured consent. And the manufactured consent that is being created today is that we need to stop spending and get Epstein files out there. Like these were I posted it like 2 minutes after the Epstein post. I'm like, oh, watch, there'll be a ton of pressure on the left now that Trump's name is an accusation against him. They'll be pressuring to release those files. You're watching this. Just remember everything you're seeing from a political and power player perspective right now is designed as a narrative to create manufactured consent. We live in a world of cattle and rancher, and our CIA and intelligence agencies actually train on a place called the farm. So, like, this is just the reality of Earth, and it's fascinating that these conversations are coming about in really mainstream places. They've been very buried on the internet for a long time, and now they're pretty normal. So, I love that you guys are doing that and expanding it. And I think Bitcoin by itself is entering an entire new era. And I think a lot of these treasury companies are going to be using the Bitcoin treasuries they have now for some of their own bonds. But I think at the end of the day, there's no coincidence that treasury companies are popping up everywhere, while major lenders are creating collateral lending processes for them to access capital from that Bitcoin without selling it. I think you're going to see massive M&A activity when the market dips a little bit. And I think you're going to see some companies that could rebound being financed in cash through big lending against treasury assets at some point in the future. Pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Bitcoin's like kryptonite against those false narratives, right? Where they used to be absorbed by you for whatever reason in the fiat system, they almost bounce off you at this point. You recognize them immediately for what they are. You're like, oh, well, that's bullshit. Um, Meanwhile, somebody standing next to you is like, wow, and you can see it almost go into their being. You're like, wait a second, you don't realize that that's complete bullshit. There's a great podcast I listened to with Jeff Booth. I forget who he was talking to, but he's like, the one thing is you can't cheat Bitcoin. If you try to cheat Bitcoin in any way, whether it's through a lending product or whether it's through any way, you're going to get wrecked. The truth, which is Bitcoin, the truth in the math is going to wreck you. So you can understand that and abide by that, or you can test those waters, but it's not going to end up well for you.
Puncha, that's one of the reasons why, as soon as and I agree with you regarding the relationship between Trump and Elon. If you're looking at it and reading the developing relationship from last spring to this winter, it was tight. Like it was a solid bond. That's what I saw. The interactions between the families. I don't think that was fake, right? Once you have Bitcoin, to your point, you view the world through a lens, the truth lens of Bitcoin. You can start aligning incentives and being able to call out what you believe is bullshit pretty quickly, pretty easily. You know, I sent you a message yesterday. I was like, this thing's all manufactured. You agreed. We went back and forth for a little bit. But it it starts to play into, all right, what is this transition going to be like, and what are the incentives? Does Trump want to add all this additional debt and BS from a bill, and on top of the national debt? How do you think Bissett thinks about that? Like, he's trying to refinance the maturity wall of $7 trillion that's coming down, within the next 8 to 9 months. We're already seeing the bond market starting to act, unstable. Potentially not. We haven't seen a no bid, but we're starting to see larger tails. So the incentive is Trump has to show potentially that he is in line with getting this bill across the finish line, because he has so much political capital on it. Plus, who knows what concessions he had to make in order to get his appointments that were all mostly highly controversial, over and approved. So he can't directly come out and say, hey, I don't support this. He has to, but he can unleash his attack dog. And what did Elon do? First thing we heard was earlier this week, he was starting to have conversations or hit Twitter about, the U.S. fiscal position is unsustainable and that this deck is going to wreck the entire country, right? So it doesn't make sense that this is actually a true fight between Elon and Trump. In my frame of reference and how I look at this is, Elon he's autistic. He's an autistic billionaire. He has, love him or hate him, he has a bigger vision. He wants to do something else. And the U.S. government was getting in his way. It doesn't matter what party it was. So he decided, hey, I'm going to go fix this. I think Trump's going to be the fastest horse to get this done based upon what we did with the last administration. And there's the aligned incentive. So.
Yeah. Hey, Maryland, Lauren, sorry. I apologize. Dark and I both have to jump on a half an hour call, but I hate to do this, but if you could grab Matt or Eric or somebody, we'll be right back. I apologize. And thanks, Maryland.
No problem.
I can help. I'll be here for like the next hour at least, Lauren.
Yeah, anyone notice we're not talking about Palantir anymore either? The largest topic on Twitter all of a sudden just disappeared. Yeah, Lauren, if you need me to help with anything, happy to.
Yeah,
Happy to.
I'll bump you over as a co-host here in a second. I really liked Puncher said Bitcoin is kryptonite, but I just thought if you went crypto night, it has a nicer ring to it. Let me do some moving around here on the stage and get you up here as the co-host. These guys have a call. I think Terrence is going to come on in a bit. Cosmo's on an airplane today, I believe, so let me move stuff around. Another thing I wanted to talk about yesterday, but we didn't get a chance to, was the whole California thing. I don't want to talk about it because I sound like I'm a statist or something, just because the connotation is actually pretty negative, and I'm not. To me, it's like two evils. Like, what do you want? Coinbase to hang on to coins that just remain there for over 3 years or whatever, or they're basically unclaimed, or do you want the state? So, and if you really dig deep on actually what was proposed, it gets more in depth. And I'm not, like I said, it's hard for me to come out and talk positively about this because I really, really come off as pro state, and I'm not. So it's a topic I wanted to get into yesterday because the amount of feedback that I got from Bitcoiners was just like, "Oh, get out of California," and it's like, yeah, duh, California's a commie state and all, but but read the bill before you go weighing in on it. So anyway, let me do some hosting duties here and turn it over to the floor.
I think that sometimes bills are created with an intention and then they motivate people in a different direction. And I think that if you look at that bill by itself, I'm switching over here. I think so. One of those things that you see from this bill is that it's absolutely motivating to get people off of exchanges. I mean, that's the entire. I think I shared a post from Dark Horse, who put it in very good perspective. He's like, you may not like this bill, but what it will do is force people to get their money off of exchanges and into cold storage. So sometimes these things they get
For
put out there
sure.
with an intention, but the intention flips around on them pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I've messed around a little bit with California's unclaimed, like they don't get to actually keep your property indefinitely. You can go in at any time and take it back. So there's actually kind of positives in this because of the way it's written. Um, it's almost like forcing the state of California to actually hold Bitcoin, which in my book legitimizes something like that. The way it's written now, it's kind of like they still do it, but you would get it back at the dollar value at which it was unclaimed. So I mean, there's unclaimed property that is, because people died or various reasons that it's never going to get reclaimed again. So to me, I wouldn't want Coinbase to get it. I mean, I don't want the state to have it either, but just read the bill a little bit. It's like I said, I have a hard time talking about it without sounding like I'm like, yeah, good old California is a win. It's just not as bad. It's not as much FUD as uh like I said, it's hard because all this stuff that I'm saying makes it sound like I'm pro California, like go California, and I'm not at all. So I'm just saying there's a happy in between in here somewhere where it's like read the bill first, guys. Don't just weigh in with a headline and just say, oh, that's it, California's confiscating your stuff. You all need to move out of California. It's probably a true statement, but California is a beautiful state. The weather's amazing here. There's a lot of things to do. It's really hard to just yield this state to a bunch of uh, I don't want to label people. I don't want to leave. It's amazing here. So it is difficult to live here with all of the insanity that ensues in California. Yes. But having said that, this bill, read it first, guys. Just read the damn thing. Read the unclaimed property laws in California. How you can go reclaim your property at any time. I found a couple of bank accounts that my grandparents had 50 years ago that I could go reclaim, but there was only like 40 or 50 bucks. It's not really worth it. So you can still reclaim your property at a later date. Read the bill.
Well, one other thing is that these exchanges, when your coins are on the exchange, they're technically the exchange's reserves. So they're building these huge reserve bases. So I will counter your defense of California because this bill in California is a defense of the banks who are highly threatened by, an exchange coming up with hundreds of billions of dollars in reserves. So this is not a haphazard, we're going to steal your stuff. They're protecting the banks because the threat of the exchanges to the banks is that ultimately they will become long-term newer versions of banks. So
Yeah,
the California bill is protecting banks.
you're absolutely correct. And even the state, when they do hold whatever kind of properties it is, bank accounts or whatever, they actually can utilize that money while they're custodying it to actually make interest, blah blah blah. So I'm right there with you, Eric. I'm not like I just sound like I come off like this is a positive thing. I'm not saying that at all. I think the number one thing here is get your coins off exchanges. We can't pound that hard enough, and hopefully these things are cattle prods to actually zap people to get their coins off of exchanges. That to me, that's the main message here.
Well, do you see the moving pieces and what that bill does? So it will motivate you to self custody. And when you self custody, you're removing assets from the exchanges who are a threat to the bank. Like it's a high level chess game and one that angers you when you read it, but it should motivate you to get your coins off of the exchanges. And that ultimately, by the way, protects the banks. And to be honest with you, I don't know a bunch of a difference between Coinbase and Bank of America in the things that they provide for our community. When the big announcement on the same day was we're listing Fartcoin. So everything has moving pieces and different things that'll drive you in different directions. Again, governments manufacture consent. That is what they do. So they're gonna say we're doing this for your betterment, so that you self custody. That's the purpose of crypto. But at the same time, this is helping out our buddies who are huge lobbyists for us to keep our job and keep our power in California. So it's
Yes.
all a triangular chess game.
Well said. Yeah. No, it's definitely the lesser of two evils, similar to our political system, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And we got Jordan up here. Jordan's new. Man, one of my favorite accounts is Shaquille Oatmeal. And I wish you would come up and speak sometime, dude. I love following your account. I agree with like 98% of what you're saying, and you're exceptionally humorous in a dry way. I'd love to have you up here. TC's here. We'd love to have you up here. Anybody who wants to speak, just go ahead and raise your hand. We'll get you guys in order. But we'd like to welcome Jordan. How are you today, sir? How can we help you? What do you have to share?
Hey man, how's it going? How's it going for you guys?
Oh, it's great, man.
Wonderful.
We're breathing. Good
Yeah.
enough for us.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a good thing. I do have a quick little thing here. But I'm gonna go ahead and tell you guys this and see what your opinion is on this. So with all this drama that's happening with Bitcoin and Trump and Elon Musk and all this stuff, you guys remember when they were talking about the gold reserves, right? My thing is, and then there's two things that go in line with this. Trump said something about, evidently, I've heard rumors where Trump's saying that he's going to basically sell gold reserves to buy Bitcoin. Now, I don't necessarily know if we have the gold reserves in Fort Knox, where Elon Musk was saying that he's going to go in and live stream that is there. That whole conversation just disappeared. All of that is just dead. It's nowhere to be found. Now, what's very interesting to me is, will that be brought up in this fight that they're having? And if they do start to sell $20 trillion worth of gold into Bitcoin, I mean, that's going to be kind of huge. But I don't like. I want your guys' opinion on that.
I'll chime in on that. I actually don't think we'll be in a position where we're selling massive amounts of gold. I think the thing to track for the Bitcoin reserve is not necessarily a sale of gold. Even repricing gold wouldn't technically be a sale. They would borrow against it, would be my guess. But I think the real place for budget neutral activity for SBR is the 432 properties that they put up for sale. We have almost $1 trillion in real estate of government buildings that don't have anybody working in them right now. So I think that's probably a better place to track. I think if we started selling gold while the rest of the world is stacking it, it's definitely a smart idea because you hold the Bitcoin, they hold the gold. But I think it would be a very controversial topic with his voting base, which is primarily older folks who aren't in Bitcoin yet. I think it would be a really big political move that would be fairly disastrous for a period of time. Just my opinion.
I think that's also why they went with the whole budget neutral route, right? Is because that's as minimally controversial as you can possibly be. So it would be a real about face to then say, okay, psych, we're going to sell everything now to buy Bitcoin. I feel like that'd be kind of at odds with what they've already announced publicly.
Let me ask you guys a question because I got to drop. Sorry to jump in. This whole budget neutral thing seems to be a bit odd because a lot of people are disagreeing with the fact that he can, even through budget neutral strategies, actually buy Bitcoin. Because even if you were to sell government property, the actual revenue would have to go first to the U.S. Treasury and then would have to be spent, and for it to be spent, it would still have to go through Congress. That's my understanding. A lot of people are disagreeing with this, but I'm pretty sure that that's how it works. Can someone chime in on that?
I think that's correct. Yeah, I think that in that scenario, I mean, everything's going to have to go through Congress, but you also have to look at progression. So we actually don't have anything finalized through Congress about a strategic Bitcoin reserve yet. So that hasn't been done. You're seeing the lobbying and the politicking behind it that are getting the ball moving there. There's more and more senators that are saying I'll vote for this when it comes up. So I think with the SBR, I don't really get excited about the SBR as much as everybody else does, to be honest with you, because it has a ton of work to do. There's a lot of stuff that you've got to go through to get this stuff approved. So I think we're jumping the gun on that. It's exciting they're talking about it, but until they actually sign a bill and have a plan in place, it's all an executive order and kind of an LOI is the best way I think of it right now.
Got some hands up. Maybe we'll go to Joe if you guys don't mind, just because I know sometimes he has some time constraints. Joe.
Thanks, Lauren. I just wanted to echo what Omar said. Just legally, people keep repeating this, and I don't know how many more times we have to say this, but budget neutral does not mean that you can sell government property and use it to buy Bitcoin. He couldn't sell the old gold reserves and use it to buy Bitcoin. He couldn't sell even the digital assets that they hold through confiscation to buy Bitcoin. Those would go back to the U.S. Congress. Omar's exactly right. So people should stop repeating this, that he could sell real estate or he could sell all sorts of things that are on the government dole. If that money goes into Treasury, it has to be appropriated. Who gets to appropriate under the Constitution? The Congress. So what they had envisioned with the budget neutral strategies. I'll give you an example of what could be budget neutral. Confiscating Bitcoin. If they confiscate Bitcoin from folks, criminals, like they got the original batch of Bitcoin, that's budget neutral. So if you're looking for budget neutral strategies, that's one of the principal ways. Another way that could be potentially budget neutral is if there's abandoned property and the government takes not necessarily confiscate, but you were talking about California. Abandoned property is budget neutral ways to increase the national strategic Bitcoin reserve. So you need to stop this. Like they're going to sell the gold to buy Bitcoin. It's without any support in fact or law.
Well, I think that's what we said, Joe. Like it's all theoretical at this point. We don't even know if that process will be around because Congress there has to be a lot of negotiating, a lot of approval. It's just kind of an LOI. Do you agree? Like right now we're in
No,
this
it's an executive
theoretical
order.
state.
Nope, it's not right. First of all, I was half listening, but somebody did say, like, well, they could sell real estate to buy Bitcoin. That's not true. That's what I was reacting to. But aside from that, it's not an LOI. It's an executive order. Executive order creates a Bitcoin strategic reserve. The executive order allows Bitcoin that has been confiscated to be put into the reserve and not sold. And future confiscated Bitcoin can also, in a budget neutral way, be added to that. Also, abandoned Bitcoin can be added to that. So it is not just some sort of letter of intent. That's not. It has legal effect for government agencies right now, as does the audit they had to complete and other aspects of it. So there are portions of it that are aspirational. I would agree with you on that, but the vast majority of it has legal effect as of today's date.
Roger
Hi,
that.
hi. Can I jump in? I have a question directly for Joe regarding this.
Go for it.
Okay. Hey, Joe. I'm not sure if this is legal or not, but could the U.S. government sell assets directly into Bitcoin? Like, for example, sell real estate for Bitcoin directly, and would that sidestep the money going to Treasury? Is that an
No,
option? No.
no, negative. But
Okay.
what could occur is the United States Congress could authorize the sale of certain assets. They could, pass a bill to sell gold for Bitcoin. The problem is very few, if anything, gets through. Very little, if anything, gets through the Congress. So that's the real challenge. And
Oh,
to be clear, okay, guys, you can see sort of the political climate. A lot of Bitcoiners went to bat, David Bailey and others, for the president in the election campaign, and the inclusion of the language. Here's a scenario. Think about this. Inclusion of the language, we're going to explore budget neutral ways to expand. In my view, that is largely optical. It was trying to give some indication to the marketplace. They're trying to acquire more Bitcoin, that is the intent. Uh, Constitutionally, their hands are pretty much tied in their ability to do that, knowing how difficult it is to get through the Congress. But just picture a world where there would have been, we're going to take the confiscated Bitcoin and we're not going to sell it, and that's all the executive order said. I think a ton of people in Bitcoin would be very disappointed with that, and people were disappointed. I mean, the market sold off when that news came out. So to me, like it's more of an optical save face that they have aspirations to acquire, although it will be very challenging to get it through the Congress. But they want to include it in there for political reasons.
Yeah, the SBR topic is ad nauseum at this point. So thank you, Joe, for clarifying that. Makes sense. Right now, we can just keep it or confiscate it. They're trying to pass another bill through Congress to allow us to buy it and move things around. That's the SBR. Matt, what's going on, buddy?
Yeah, I'm enjoying the speech. I read somewhere that budget neutral in this context meant that they had like 7 years as well for the window for the payback. So I wonder if there's not some opportunity to make investments that, as long as they have a return stream that's bankable and financeable, that you could see, maybe there's a way to stack sats that way from the government's perspective, but have it still be budget neutral. But and also Trump posted about maybe taking Fannie Mae and Freddie public. I wonder if that wouldn't be a source of proceeds that we could turn around and put into Bitcoin. But I think that I'll end here. It's a sad to see that there was some kerfuffle between two billionaires, and the reality is what we care about is closer to the ground. And what matters is sovereignty, and what matters is the ability to gain and extend your freedom. And unfortunately, there's been this illusion of freedom under the fiat standard that if you just keep stacking these papers with dead presidents on it, that you were gaining status and you were moving up the ladder. But what they didn't tell people was how fast the ladder was being chopped underneath us, and we were all moving down. And now we're getting closer to the blender and where the chopping is happening. And I'm not going to go off into financial calamity because I don't want Joe to come in and tell me everything's going to be all right and that inflation's part of the system. And that's actually a good thing. But what I will say is that it's not a good thing for you to routinely lose purchasing power and have it still stolen by the central bank printers. And I'm excited that Bitcoin exists because we have a reserve, a way to store our financial energy in a medium that we can extend to our family and the people we care about whenever hard times hit, or hopefully in the future when we're passing them on to our kids. So go Bitcoin.
Yeah, we had Tomer, you had your hand up earlier. I didn't know if you.
Yeah, I'll ask it quickly. Joe, just as a point of clarification, as a question of extra clarification on the statements you made, I asked of Grok earlier what was considered budget neutral, and it did say that now, it may or may not be right. That's why I'm asking you the question. It said that the conversion of other reserves could be considered budget neutral. So the gold reserves to petroleum reserves, foreign currency holdings, that converting that would be um, budget neutral as defined there. Are you disagreeing with that, or is that a grayish
Yeah,
area?
there's a no, there's a Ninth Circuit case in the 70s where exactly that was tried and rejected. So, I mean, a lot of these things, right, is that we've seen this play out, Tomer, philosophically. Like, there are some things that are explicit and express, right? Like, there's no doubt. Like, for example, the government cannot just go out and, borrow money and buy Bitcoin right now. They can't do that, right? There are other things where, like, okay, well, what if we're not? What is it? Is it truly to be budget neutral in this fashion to sell real estate and do these things? They're closer calls, but there's precedent that says no, that is not budget neutral because that money has to go back to Treasury, and require an appropriation under the Constitution. So all of this is to say, if efforts were tried to acquire Bitcoin at through some means that bypasses Congress, what will happen is there will be a legal challenge. And in my view, based on existing precedent, I think it would not survive a legal challenge and it would be stayed, and the court system would direct the administration not to continue operations to buy Bitcoin.
Okay. And then
Tomer, I
one
think
last.
Tomer,
Oh, sorry.
let
Just
me tell you this real quick.
yeah.
I
Sure.
think the main issue here is that a lot of people are associating the term budget neutral with the president's ability to spend without congressional approval, and that's wrong. It's not because something is budget
Exactly.
neutral that he can just go ahead and spend it. Budget neutral, it just means that it doesn't increase the federal deficit. So even though it may not increase the spending, it still counts as federal funds, and it's still subject to appropriations process. And that's where a lot of people are confused because of that, famous whatever statement that came out after the SBR. We're going to explore options of buying Bitcoin with, through budget new. It still has to go through Congress because it's still federal funds.
100% correct. Just think about it differently, right? Just think about it slightly differently. Let's say the government wants to buy a bunch of new aircraft carriers. Can they sell the gold to buy all the new aircraft carriers? Why? It's national strategic importance. We need to have aircraft carriers for military defense. Why can't they do that? It's the same logic. If the government, if the administration, if the executive could just sell federal assets and then use the money for however it saw fit, it would be meaningless to require an appropriation for Congress.
Very clear. So the idea of me and a few Bitcoiners getting together to try to buy Alaska, we'd need congressional approval first.
That's correct. That's correct. We got Terrence here. Welcome, Terrence. Thanks for coming. The strategic Bitcoin reserve that I'm concerned about is Broadswords, who had his hand up earlier. We missed him. So, Broadsword, tell us about your SBR, brother.
Oh, my SBR. Well, I actually wanted to ask Puncher and Darkside before they bounced. What do they think about the 4-year cycle? As far as the SBR, I don't know, man. Like Cynthia Loomis is trying to push it through, but there's just so much pushback through Congress, and everything that I'm seeing in macro, it's like I don't think they have a choice. So with game theory going off, it's like who's going to be the first? Like I think it was Sailor or someone said it. Who's going to be the first to turn their printers on to devalue their currency before they stack Bitcoin? And I don't know, is the US going to be first, or are they going to be left behind?
What are you looking at in macro that tells you they have to do this?
I mean, they don't have to, but the way that I'm seeing is like, okay, gold is a reserve asset. but Bitcoin is just so much better. And to people's to ideas from people smarter than me is like, if you want to fuck China and you want to get ahead of some of the, like, yes, you will also it's also going to be bad for the allies, but if you want to move forward in the digital age faster, like accept using Bitcoin as a reserve asset would be a lot more strategic than using gold as a reserve asset to move away from the trade deficits and getting away from the 10-year being the reserve asset of the world, because it's just not working. It's not working for the US to be the bank of the world anymore.
Well, again, I think on the SBR, the thing that, and I appreciate Joe sharing this with us, is like we kind of know what it is today. What's going through Congress right now is what they're trying to make it where we can't acquire Bitcoin through traditional means, budget neutral means, whatever way to actually buy it. That has to go through Congress, and right now there's like 10 senators that support it. I mean, it's a very low support rate, which is why I think you're starting to see a lot more politicians involved at Bitcoin conferences. I think you're starting to see more politicians involved speaking about it, more news networks talking about it. I think the problem we're going to have, and just this is just not being pessimistic, it's just being honest, is the fact that the world understands gold. It's been around 5,000 years. Adoption rate of Bitcoin is very low. Understanding of Bitcoin is very low. So I think we have to elevate the understanding and the explanation as to why Bitcoin is better than gold to the average person before any of that becomes a topic of conversation that has any sort of sticking point. So it becomes even more relevant today more than ever that these spaces occur, that you have varying voices and opinions of what's going on today, to be able to spawn off that education level. Because right now it's bickering and it's magic internet money to 98% of the world. So until those numbers go up, me personally, I think it's a conversation that's interesting, but I think there's a lot more interesting conversations out there currently. That's just
By the
my
way,
opinion.
Eric, no, that's good stuff. But by the way, you know it is going to get through the Congress, the Genius Act, which, contrary to, I couldn't see who was talking, but that's going to strengthen the Treasury market, going to strengthen dollar hegemony. So it seems to be at cross purposes to think that they're going to advance some bill to transition to a Bitcoin standard by way of the federal government when they're ostensibly trying to promote dollar hegemony and the Treasury market hegemony.
So Joe, I totally agree with that. And I know in the meantime that's what's going to happen, but I'm just saying, like, longer term out, I don't believe there's an option, because it is just better. I mean, it's kind of like, if your enemies adopt gunpowder faster than you, they're going to destroy you. Like, coming from that, and I think these conversations have been had throughout history many times. Like, well, look at electricity, look at stuff, like, there's always been people pushing it back, but just the new tech has to be adopted or you're left behind. Look at the difference
Yeah, but
between
it's
North Korea. Go
but
ahead.
I would view it a slightly differently. I would frame it like this: by adopting Bitcoin, the United States is effectively shooting itself in the foot because you're undermining dollar hegemony and the Treasury market hegemony. So if you, from a please don't. I think Bitcoin's better, right? I'm on Team Bitcoin. Okay, I'm just telling you from a geopolitical strategy, right? But hastening the decline of the dollar and the Treasury market undermines U.S. institutions, at least in the short to intermediate term run. Maybe long term, maybe you can make the case after the entire world transitions to Bitcoin, then if we have the biggest pile of Bitcoin, the biggest pile of Bitcoin wins. Then I would agree with you. But the problem is the interim period for the 10, 15 years in the middle, where we're scrambling because we lost one of the biggest privileges the United States has, which is dollar hegemony.
And I say, take advantage of the opportunity to build your own strategic reserve for your damn self, because that is a short to medium term solution for your own hegemony within your little sphere that you live. So, on a personal level, these things work out way different than for giant global superpowers. I don't know. I think people should
Well,
focus
TC,
more on their own opportunities.
I completely agree with you. And let me tell you, let me see if you disagree with this. My view is the reason we have this fixation on U.S. adopting a, strategic Bitcoin reserve and, short termism of what we want them to buy now and to pump the price and other sovereigns to buy. It's really a lot of high time preference thinking. It's a lot of like, I want to get pumped right now. I don't want to have to wait and stack and do work, right? I want to get pumped now. I want $500,000 Bitcoin so I can sit on the beach with a cocktail instead of being under a bridge
Well,
with
yeah,
cat food.
and
I
look at
gotta
the
go though.
opportunity. Oh, Joe, before you go, it was really fun to sit to your right and play poker. Next time I want to sit to your left.
Yeah, you rage quit, man. Like I don't know why
That's
that was, you should have rebought.
No, I
You should have
didn't
played
rage
more.
quit.
I'm
I was
kidding. I'm
busted
kidding.
and I had other things to do.
No,
So
well, like we
The
barely
point
played.
is next time I'm sitting to your left because then you get to act first. And
Love it.
then
love it.
that'll
Mm.
that'll be cool. But seriously, the opportunity here for individuals is tremendous. And just, case in point, everyone is, short attention span. So if you can remember all the way back to about noon yesterday, when because of some tweets between two people, the price was down. There was fabulous smash buying opportunities. I just you gotta live in the present. You gotta recognize that window's closing. Nobody's stacking hard enough, which is why everyone's so concerned about strategic reserves and having governments pump your bags for you. No, you just have to pump your own bags. Stack it up. Let's fucking go. But the real reason I jumped up is, I know you guys were all just patiently waiting to get into the real topics of concern, which is, my goodness, block 900,000. Can you guys believe it? 900,000 Bitcoin blocks have been added to the chain, each one cementing transactions into an immutable history, each one issuing new units of Bitcoin into the world. It's just an amazing thing. And I don't think enough people really pay attention. And so, start paying attention before you know it. It's going to be block 1 million. These are rare times. This is what you're going to talk to your grandkids about. They won't even believe that you were involved when the chain was less than 1 million blocks. So, just take a moment to just reflect on where you all are and where Bitcoin is, and how early we are, as they say.
So to that point, I want to add, I can't believe that the mempool is so empty at these stages.
Okay, I tweeted back at somebody who said something exactly like that, and I just want to remind people, less than 2 years ago, people were freaking out, ready to jump out of windows because the fees were so high and the mempool was so clogged and so many transactions were being purged. Enjoy this. Like all things, pendulum action. We're just at one extreme. It will swing back the other way, and everyone will cry foul and say Bitcoin's broken and say we have a crisis that needs us to do a fork because, it's too expensive on chain. No, no, enjoy this time. How about like parlay these low fees and this empty mempool action into making some transactions? I'll bet a few people who are in here today haven't actually made any transactions on chain. Why don't you try it? It's the best way to start understanding Bitcoin better. Use the damn thing. Let's go.
I was just onboarding someone yesterday into multisig for the first time, right? So everything was brand new for them. And as I typically do, I had them go to the mempool space, and I'm like, "Look, this is Bitcoin's time chain. This is it. This is where you can see everything. This is where everything's recorded." And of course, some of the blocks, because I'm trying to show, oh, look at the blocks on the right. Those, these ones have been done. The ones on the left haven't been, and some of them, weren't quite full. And I was looking at the sats for VByte, and we were down to one. Like the upcoming three were down in one, and he sent a pile of money. I'm not going to say how much, but it was a lot, off of Coinbase because that's where he had been for years, straight over, and he paid 57 cents to put his entire stack into multisig with distributed keys. So, anyways, I was just super proud that he got to actually see that, and he was staring at the mempool. He's like, "I'm going to keep this on all day. This is fascinating."
Terrence,
Uh,
that's I think it's honestly one of the most powerful, like, orange pilling nuggets. If you're talking to anyone who's, like, say in the banking industry, ask them how much it costs to move $1 billion from one side of the earth to the other. And this is one of the things Bitcoin does that just runs circles
around the existing system. People love to compare Bitcoin to Visa and MasterCard, which is just a total red herring comparison. You compare Bitcoin to ACH and SWIFT and the real settlement rails of the banking system. Ask them, what does it cost? How long does it take? And how reversible is it to move $1 billion? And on Bitcoin, the answer is 10 minutes and somewhere below $1, basically 50, 70 cents, something like that. And it's staggering when you realize that you can actually move monetary value that way, that cheaply, that permissionlessly. It's a powerful one.
Absolutely. Tomer, your hands up.
Yeah, just to put TC at rest, I used on-chain Bitcoin today, and I tweeted afterwards, like, it still feels like magic after 12 years. So,
Did you still
get
get
out the
nervous
hardware wallet.
beforehand?
Sorry?
I said, did you still get nervous beforehand? Even though I've done it a
No,
bunch of
no.
times, I feel like I'm still like, am I sending this to the right
I'll
address?
tell you,
Am I
the
about to
nervousness
just send
goes
this to
away. Yeah.
nowhere?
The nervousness goes away as soon as I get my stuff together. Like if I'm sitting in my family room thinking, oh, I got to go do a transaction. Am I going to screw it up? I feel a little nervous. But then I go upstairs, I pull out my hardware wallet. I've got something else that I do for security. And I just go through the steps and it's flawless. And it's a
The
pattern that I've repeated.
the nervousness comes with the amount, Matt. So if you're gonna send 500,000 sats versus 5 Bitcoin, the nervous level will definitely go really, really high.
Well, then for me, the nervousness level is always from the size of the UTXO that I'm spending. Because if I have a large UTXO and I'm spending even a small amount from it, the whole UTXO gets canceled, and I need to make change for myself. And this comes from something that I did back in 2015, where I was hand rolling transactions on the command line, and I forgot to add a fee to a transaction that I sent. It was a very small transaction, especially in terms of that, but my whole stack was involved because it was all coming from one UTXO, and I had to wait weeks for it to get confirmed. So I learned a lot about Bitcoin in doing that, and I guess my coins were never really in danger, but I had a wallet open that showed the transaction is sent but not confirmed, so I couldn't resend the things, and it was before RFB and before child pays for parent was readily accepted. So I'm still nervous about something that I don't need to be nervous about, but
Hey, to
that's
the
what you get
to the
for having a SPAR.
nervousness, I don't know the last time any of you guys did like a wire transfer through a bank of any kind of sizable amount of money,
That I know doesn't
but
work.
the
Yeah.
amount of time and sitting there waiting for institutions to say let's allow this to happen, it just hits different after you've used Bitcoin. It just hits different, and you realize, holy moly, this Bitcoin thing, this dinosaur of crypto, is actually so performant and runs circles around this legacy system in just really undeniable ways. These are valuable perspectives.
TC, when I can chime in here, so, and thanks for good to hear
Alexander.
you. So again, so what I was like thinking about, again, I said it before in another space, to really recognize that the power of custody, right, or self-custody. I mean, and I was worrying, or I was kind of trying to compare that with gold, and where we said it actually did not work. I meant to read that, okay, we need 44,000 hours to here say, is the gold even there, or even having people in the room or stuff in in our 25th century? That's crazy, right? So I just hope, I really thought about why gold never achieved that, and I think it comes down to the communication channel. I cannot tell you the SBR. Does the government should tell everybody, here guys, I'm really sovereign because I really never have to sell this Bitcoin, because I run the government in a way that I do not have to sell it like everybody else in real life? Is that a good thing? I mean, who has the keys, right? Who will buy it? We have the multi-sig solutions. But everybody else, I think, who is in Bitcoin is already doing a better job than the government. You should let that sink in, because I read this incredible post, so which like, okay, you worked 50 years and then the government comes and in 2 days they devalue like 25% of your year, of your what you saved, right? 25 of your life. I mean, I can only claim that I worked for 20 years. So you erase 12, probably 13 years of my life. It was enough for me. to trust fiat. Thank you very much.
Yeah, TC to on chain. Yesterday was my son's birthday. We sent him $500 in Sats on chain yesterday. Got to see him watch it for the first time. He's learning, still young and learning. And today my partner has given him one as well, so he's going to conduct his own. That's important to teach the kids, man. Very important.
Eric, Lauren just DM'd me. He said it's his birthday, so he wants some sats.
Lauren is stacked up. Lauren is the SBR. Like Lauren's going to be nationalized,
You
and
guys are
they're
close,
just going to take
actually.
it.
Not with
Hey,
the
hey, Lauren
not with the
definitely
stack,
is
but with the
stacked up.
birthday. Go ahead.
No, Lauren's definitely stacked up. I mean, you see the screenshot from that Coinbase transaction, what, long time ago. So he's definitely stacked
No,
up.
no, Tao. He sent that to me already. I'm working on getting him double back. I've gotten tied up with some other stuff, so that'll come to you soon, Lauren. Just give me another
No.
week or year.
In reality, if somebody shows up at my house with a wrench, they're gonna be like, are you sure? Is this the right place?"
Matt's just waiting until he wins the Nigerian lottery from that email he got, and then he'll get you right back immediately, like the day that happens.
Yeah, I sent it to my contacts in Africa. They're gonna double it and send it back to me, so that way I can, do the same for you. It's kind of like that. You've seen those things where people are walking on the beach and they're like, "Do you want this ice cream?" or double it and give it to the next guy. I'm basically doing that with your Bitcoin, Lauren.
Broadsword.
Yeah, so to TC's point, I personally think that yes, comparing on-chain transactions to Visa and stuff is not comparable. You should be comparing it to Swift. But I think that actually comparing Lightning Network to Visa is a comparable comparison.
Yeah, you seen the TPS on that?
Yeah, I have. I can't remember who posted the video, but I was looking at it. I'm like, dude, that's crazy.
Something
Yeah,
like
like
40,000 per
400, no,
second.
400,000.
Visa does
400,000.
Visa does, I think they can do 20,000 a second or something in that neighborhood, and Lightning Network it's theoretical, but it can theoretically do in the order of millions transactions per second.
So how
40
many of
million
them do we
theoretical.
actually not be able to see, right? Like how much of the Lightning do we not see the transaction? So I'm thinking it's more than what it is right now.
I mean,
Uh,
it's technically infinitely scalable like the internet because every time you add nodes and connections, you create more routes, and they're only limited by their own connection. So, like Lightning, because it's decentralized and also off chain, it doesn't require confirmations. It only requires routing between. Did I speak out of turn?
No, I
So
was trying to get a request, and it moved over to unmuted. Somebody's request drop. That was totally
anyhow,
Press
my
the
like,
fault.
right buttons, Eric, please.
yeah,
Thank you.
you can imagine that every time you add a node and open channels, it's like adding another router to the internet, and so the internet doesn't run out of bandwidth. It just you add bandwidth.
Omar,
Yeah.
the problem up there is how do we balance these channels? I understand that TC has
but
a lot of channels already running, but that would, right? It's the best example with this coffee shop. If I always come and only buy coffee from you, I want that you also buy something for myself. But
Well,
currently, I
this
have
is
nothing
where
to
it
sell for
actually
you.
scales. It scales even better the more people start to create a circular type of economy with it. Like like Steak and Shake is now receiving a lot of Bitcoin over Lightning. They need to communicate with their suppliers and say, "Hey, you guys should accept Bitcoin too." That way, they won't have to redeem all that Bitcoin for dollars and see it churn. But I think this is going to be the way of things. I think miners are going to start doing deals with energy providers where the energy providers accept Bitcoin and they'll accept it either on chain or via Lightning. And then they have a lot of suppliers and so on and so forth. So it's a slow process, the monetization. But like the beauty of it is we have a very, very, very scalable solution for it. And it's not, oh my God, everyone needs endless UTXOs. And every time someone wants to send a transaction, there's a UTXO. It's like, no, every time someone sets up a relationship that they know is going to be a repetitive one, there's a UTXO, which is a lightning channel open. And then the money just keeps routing and eventually it finds its way back around to you. And so that,
Especially if you really do open up enough channels. Like that's the thing that changed Sovereign Lightning for me. The first time I really tried to make Sovereign Lightning work, I was sitting there with not enough liquidity and not enough channels, and I encountered frustration. But as soon as I put enough liquidity and opened up enough channels with the right partners, everything flows and it more or less
yeah.
self balances over time. It's kind of amazing.
Yep.
Let,
I'm with you there. Same exact experience. The one thing, this is going to be a little bit over people's heads, but it's not going to be over people who are setting up channels. When you start and set up a Lightning node, the tendency is to reach out to somebody and say, "Hey, let's set up a channel together." And what the mistake people often make is, "Yeah, let's set up two channels. I'll open one with liquidity to you. You open one with liquidity to me," and you've kind of just you've created a pendulum where liquidity can only flow back and forth between you. What I often say to people, because they want inbound liquidity, is I'll open up a channel with liquidity inbound to you. Don't open one up back to me. Open one up uh, to a large node, so that if I want to spend the Bitcoin in there, it'll route through your node and go to the large liquidity provider or the large node, who's very well connected. And now you've got inbound liquidity, and you've got outbound liquidity to the large provider. So if anyone has any questions about that, because they're practically setting up a node, DM me. I don't want to get too complicated in here for people who
yeah.
aren't familiar with it. But once you start doing that, you find that your channels are constantly getting rebalanced. You'll find that you never have payment failures, and it really, yeah, it really takes only like 5 or 6 channels to be open with people in that format, that you're unlikely to encounter any challenges with on-chain Lightning. So it does
Yeah,
require
let me add a little color to this. I actually work in the payments industry for a very big fintech company, and there's other differences that we need to recognize, and that is when you make a credit card payment or you place an order on the website, it goes through a bunch of entities before it actually approves the credit card transaction, and the website says, "No, your order is confirmed." So if you compare that with the difference to Bitcoin, yeah, and Lightning, yes, you have a lot of nodes that you would have to route through in order to reach that destination node. However, Lightning has the ability to just be peer to peer, where you can skip all those other nodes if you wanted to. Now you can't do that through the credit card payment system. So that's the big difference here. And I don't want to dox myself because it's a conflict of interest working in the payments industry and also being involved with Bitcoin and everything. But one of the things that really convinced me about Bitcoin is because of the ease for any entity or merchant or individual to participate in the network, right? It's open for them to be able to set up and to start processing a transaction globally without this additional fee from the network associations, meaning Visa, MasterCard, blah, 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 right? There's these fees that all these other entities will take off the top when a merchant receives a transaction that a cardholder places. And so the merchant themselves are feeling already like their margin is already being shaved off from every little entity that takes, a penny here, a penny there per transactions. So there's a lot of advantages in Bitcoin plus Lightning that people are not seeing compared to a legacy system. I mean, they might know certain aspects, but the details of it, they they don't know the details.
Tal, sorry to interrupt you. You make a great point because I also just saw this one where they had, I think, Visa, Mastercard that was asked, and I think they make 60 to 70% profit on the people, right, with their cards. But I think they I don't know if you can say hide it or what's the different word for in English? Not confiscated, but so again, the end consumer probably does not see that, right?
And it's
Definitely when you
beyond
see.
that, and it's beyond that, right? I don't want to get in trouble, but it's
So okay,
beyond
when
that,
I pay
guys.
with my credit card in the supermarket, okay, I do not see actually that it's 80% overpriced because it has to run through all this stuff. right? I think the people who really see that are the people who send remittance payments home.
Yeah, it's beyond that. It's not. It's just not collecting fees. There's many other ways to make money. Okay, to me, and I don't want to get into trouble, but I compare it to sort of a cabal, or where like they monopolize the payments industry and how actually the world operates. So they monopolize, the system, and so it's very very hard to even get into the system because it's been established for so long, right? More than 60, 70 years ago, and it's only yeah. Anyways, I'll just stop there. I think Eric has his hand up. So
Yeah, I think the thing that's often overlooked about Lightning Network is how much money it saves businesses on processing fees. And you're exactly right. There's a cabal. Everything works systematically. 71, we go off the gold standard. 73, they create the 401k tax shelter to basically harvest your money, tax sheltered at a lower tax rate than when you retire. You have stocks and bonds only. 77, 78, they came out with the credit system. 79, they started accepting credit cards everywhere. That built a complete monopoly to get rid of cash, to get rid of privacy, also to get rid of profitability for small and mid-sized businesses, which is why we have such a huge monopolistic state right now. So if you look at America, a lot of the jobs are provided by small companies that do 10 to $20 million a year in revenue. If they were able to save 3% on credit card transactions, which are about 88% of all transactions they take, they're looking at saving between $300,000 and $600,000 per year, which could either be six new $100,000 workers or $600,000 more in profit. Even on the government side, $600,000 more in taxation. That middleman of Visa, MasterCard, American Express is a gigantic suck on the system, which is already losing 9 to 12% a year in buying power on the currency being transacted. So Lightning Network is a massive project. I'm glad that we're talking about it. But we talk about it from the end user experience, from the node runners. I think incentives are okay there because people who are running nodes on Lightning aren't really in it for the money, which is a good thing. Money is nice for them. But the amount of money that Lightning will save small and mid-sized businesses, which are the heartbeat of America, is really the main story here. There are hundreds of billions of dollars paid every year just to accept money, and that's by itself a cabal and a thievery.
yeah, the only slight, I would say, a slight disadvantage is for the payer, because with Bitcoin, the payer cannot, you know, issue a chargeback versus the legacy system, right? The legacy system protects the, of course, you call it cardholder more than the merchant, but Bitcoin definitely protects the merchant way more because no one can reverse it.
Well, let's be honest about the chargeback system. So they have now extended chargeback periods. So I think you have like 270 days to charge back. If they actually did a study on the amount of chargebacks that were legitimate, I think you'd find out that somewhere around 20 to 30% of chargebacks are legitimate claims. I've been a merchant. I've run merchant accounts. I've had businesses that accept credit cards. I have had people come into my place of business, buy something, receive it. I handed it to them directly, and 3 months later, I get a notification that they never received a product that I handed to them physically. I had to pay that bill back. I had to go through the system. So chargebacks are a big issue that very few people talk about in
Yes.
finance.
Yes, Eric. I actually work in this very specific industry, this area too, and that's what they call like friendly fraud, right? They know that they made the purchase, but they still want that money. And I'm not going to go deeply in how elaborate the processing and is works, and how all the entities interact when something like this happens. And all I'm saying is it's a cabal. It's monopolized already with the people, the incumbents who are already there, right? And so it's very hard to kind of, so you cannot go from the inside and out. You have to kind of like overwhelm it from showing like, hey, there's this sort of new protocol. That's why when Jack Muller said, hey, it's so open source, anybody can plug it in so easily. I think that's the direction that it's gonna go, and it looks like that's the way it's going right now. So yeah.
Let's go
Rusty.
to Roosty.
Hey, this is kind of it's a question maybe Tomer or TC, and you guys that want to answer. Just because I want to like always contribute. what would you say if, like, so I have a computer dedicated to just, Bitcoin Core. So if I just have that open, what would you say that's equivalent of helping the network? I know that's like a generalized question, but
Are you
uh,
asking me?
yeah,
So
like again,
you're
like
running
a
a node and it's
yeah,
just running. It,
yeah.
it's not doing much. Like the paradoxical thing about it is if everybody stopped running it, the network would go down. But and so the more people who are running it, the more robust the network is. But if your node goes down, it's like taking a drop out of the ocean, right?
Rusty,
There's tens of thousands of nodes.
Rusty, when you would, I guess you run now a node. I guess when you never communicate over your node, which where we say, okay, do you connect your Sparrow wallet to it, and the Sparrow
No, and
wallet
I
is,
and I do.
yeah,
I connect Sparrow to it,
okay.
but I'm
Then you
saying
actually,
this
yeah.
is a
If
a,
you
a, a
only run a
question
node,
of
if you only run a node, then you do one thing, and I think one thing only. When we say, oh, could Bitcoin ever die? No, you would be the guy who still has a copy of the entire chain, so we could always reboot it. That's what you would do when you would never use your node. But again, just look at when with your hardware device, do you actually want to use your hardware device, but you actually to make your UTXO transaction and clean up, you're actually using TC's monitor because you use his node, so he knows what you're doing. When you use your own node, only you know.
Tomer, were you done speaking?
Well, sort of. I, I don't know that. Like, I think Rusty, you're running the node more for your own sake than you are for the sake of preserving the network. The network isn't
well,
0.01% stronger because of it. But it sure doesn't hurt. Like you're not hurting the network by running a node. You're making another copy of the blockchain in another place. So you're making it for if somebody wants to wipe out Bitcoin by hunting down all the nodes and destroying them, you're creating more work for them because they now have to find your node and hunt it down and destroy it. So you
so
know
I'm super powerful and control
you are
Bitcoin.
yeah
I,
yeah.
I was asking that as a more philosophical because I like to contribute. Is all. So, and that I use it for Sparrow and running my own node. And I just was like, okay, what is there, like 20 something million running at a time? I think is that accurate?
There's 20,000. There's somewhere in the ballpark of
Oh,
20,000.
sorry, I was
I
thinking, yeah,
I
20,000.
discoverable nodes. So there
Yeah.
could be other nodes that are running without relaying and without sending data back out. So they're only recipients, and there's certainly more than zero of those. And those are archival nodes that are keeping, if to the extent that they're not pruning, they're keeping a full copy of the entire blockchain from history. And indeed, if all the relaying nodes, discoverable nodes went down, someone would be able to turn this one into a discoverable node. But there, you know, it just it's more powerful. It's almost a question like saying, if I grow a dandelion in my backyard, what am I doing to help dandelions? And it's like there's millions and millions of these things, so their survival doesn't depend upon your growing one, but there's more of them because of the actions that you're taking. So it's kind of a paradoxical answer that you are helping and doing nothing at the same time. It's very quantum science, quantum physics like.
Tomer, when I can jump into one more time.
Wait one sec,
Okay, okay.
Alex. Let's go to Leonidas, and then Broadsword had his hand up.
Hey guys, quick question. Since you guys were discussing Lightning Network, time chain, and chargebacks, I was just curious from a adoption perspective. I run a business that's service based, not maybe product based. And let's say we've got guests halfway around the world that we need to refund amount of money to. I guess can you help me from a technical perspective? Does the Lightning Network allow for functionality to essentially legitimate quote unquote refunds or whatnot? What is there a mechanism for that you guys have seen that comes into play where there's a legitimate use case for sending funds back to the user that paid through the Lightning Network?
So, well, the question is who controls it, right? Like, there's no head office that if I pay you on Lightning Network and I feel that you haven't done a good job, there's nowhere I can appeal to say give me back he needs to give me back my money, other than a court of law. If I choose to sue you, and then and they can't make the Lightning Network do something. So Lightning Network transactions are just as final as Bitcoin network transactions. They can only be settled in their final state. So now you can easily send somebody back. Like if I send you $20 for a hamburger and you made me the wrong hamburger, and you say I'll send you back the money, you can easily send it back to me. But it's not. There's no trusted third party with authority. The system is completely decentralized.
Sure. And I guess, is anyone from the speaker group, Tao, maybe you have experience with this, but has anyone implemented Lightning payments at their business and then used it functionally to, when needed and appropriate, to send back funds and kind of make that work from a localized accounting perspective and just kind of tracking transaction perspective for a business? Let's say a hotel, for example, may need to, issue multiple refunds in a day. I'm just trying to think through the actual use case of it.
Yeah, 100%. It's no different than cash, and in fact, just more final and actually easier to track. It's more on your own software what you want to use or whatever payment services you're using, but it's just a channel. Money can come in or go out. Let's go to Broadsword if that answered your question, Leonidas, and then Alexander.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate it.
So I guess this is a little bit more directed to Tao, without doxing too much or saying tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. I heard that when Visa went to the people that were designing the tap system, they said to Visa, "Hey, this is very insecure. Should not be implemented like this." But Visa didn't care because they knew they're going to make so much more money off of the insurance of any like stolen claims and stuff from the back end. I wonder what your opinion about that is, or obviously anybody else.
Um, I did not. I'm not involved in the tap system or anything like that, so I'm gonna say no comment for now. Sorry.
Okay,
Alex.
all good.
Oh, go ahead, Eric. Let
Y-
Eric.
Yeah, I don't have a direct answer for you, Broadsword, but let me put it to you in this perspective. You have an intermediary banking cartel called credit card processors who basically take a clip of everyone's transactions all day long and have millions of dollars to convince you to use your credit card instead of cash. Would it surprise you in today's environment where we spend $14 million on transsexual operations for dolphins in Guam? Would it surprise you that that would be the case? That's kind of the reality of the world we live in right now. Is common sense would tell you if they can rip you off in some way using insurance, they're probably doing it. Just my 2 cents.
You woke Lauren up with that description, Eric.
I'm awake. I'm here. No, I actually was doing 14 other things behind the scenes, but yeah, I've been semi here.
Name one of the things you were doing. I don't believe you were doing 14.
Um, well, coincidentally, I was actually doing a step kid exchange, so that was difficult, and texting my wife and making a call and doing some personal things, getting ready to go out of town this weekend. So I was doing, maybe I exaggerate, I was doing four, and two of them were extremely difficult.
Well, stop telegramming that guy who says he's Satoshi Nakamoto. I keep telling you that's not Satoshi.
I'm still stuck back with the Eric thing of doing the 2-for-1 Bitcoin exchange with the fellow from Nigeria. So I'm still waiting for my two.
It's 4-for-1 because I'm forwarding it, Lauren.
Oh,
So I
dang.
doubled it.
Shoot. I'm
Yeah, I
in.
doubled it,
Count
and
me in.
then the Nigerian prince is going to double that. So
Just 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks, Lauren. That's all. 2 weeks.
Okay, guys, I'll
easily
get you
2
back in
weeks.
2 weeks then. Thank you. Thanks for the loaners in Vegas.
All right, Alex, I'm not sure if you still had your hand up. If not,
Yeah,
let's welcome Pink Shirt.
I did not want to derail the conversation. I just want to say to Tomer, with
Thank you.
uh, I think it's a good thing that we discussed yesterday. Okay, where is quantum a real threat? And I think it's out. I don't know, probably only 12 years, because I can write this is all the way over my math understanding. I saw the interview with Hunter Beast. I think he looks like my math teacher. I was good in math, but never understood my math teacher. I mean, we did this once, right, with SegWit. I mean, I choose this addresses because, okay, I understood we can actually compress more data. So having an on-chain footprint would be better. instead of using 103s, and also that actually the address is better readable. If this is what it takes to have a fight with quantum, probably. Tomer, I think it's and Lawrence, it's a good topic. Instead of talking, oh, do we have to explain Bitcoin and Satoshis? Okay, everybody who understands a meter or kilometers, centimeters, understands the power of 10 or 100. I think that's a way better topic. And again, what I saw so far is it's not only that we can now quantum entanglement on with electrons and protons, right, where you have to really cool down the system to absolute zero. We can also do this with light. Light is also quantum, right? And this can be done in room temperature. And I understood, but I don't know if this is true, that they solved kind of the observer problem of a phantom, right? The Schrödinger's cat, is it dead or alive? So, and when we can do error correction on the quantum level and actually do not have to go to minus 270 degrees, probably we should take it serious. That's all. Thanks, guys.
PSG
I'm
was
not
saying,
really sure what
yeah,
some of those
go
comments
ahead,
were
Tom.
addressed at me. I don't really know what um,
I'm sorry.
what you're talking about, so I may be in over my head, or we need to have a bigger conversation. But uh, so I just want to be clear that I haven't seen
Hey,
the interview that you mentioned.
Tomer, I'm gonna dive in if you don't mind. Maybe I'm bailing you out in a way. I don't
Sure.
know, but I still think it's completely hilarious Joe's reaction to meeting Asteroid, and I was talking with Joe behind the scenes, and I really think Joe doesn't believe that that was actually Asteroid.
I mean, if
Surprise, it was.
let uh, so let me just
I
say
was
this.
there. I was there when Joe said, "Your asteroid. This
Okay,
is asteroid."
no, because you guys like to play tricks on me all the time, and I'm naturally suspicious. So I did not. If that truly is asteroid, then I apologize to him because I didn't mean to insult his appearance. I did not recognize. I had this image in you have an image in your head of someone, and then it's totally different, like a 180. It's kind of a mind f. I mean, it like really screws with you. So I was struggling to keep hold with
Well,
reality when I said.
Joe, I used to make jokes about him being a homeless person for a reason. And I said the story many, many times on these spaces in the past about how the hotel staff were looking at this guy trying to get in the hotel and actually locked him out. Those were not jokes. They were
He's
based in
not like
reality. So,
he's not like yeah, I didn't get homeless person
well, he
vibe. I
had
got
a
more
big
like a
scruffy
the
beard then too, so he had shaved that off and just
yeah.
had a
Well, that's
strange
different.
looking mustache.
Yeah,
So yeah,
the guy I saw was kind of like the millennial George Costanza. I mean, it was like it was very strange. Like it didn't make sense to me.
that's
He's a
Asteroid.
good dude. He's a good dude,
Yeah,
guys.
got a
Yeah,
good
by
heart.
the way, that's a haunting visual. Millennial George Costanza is a haunting visual. Thank you so much, Joe.
Well, I mean, it was haunting. I honestly thought like so. Here, let me just tell you, Matt. Like when I came in, it was kind of I was making the rounds. It was like the fourth stop I had before then, and I was taken aback. There's people like saying Dark Side's ready to fight you, and then all of a sudden this other guy walks up and he claims to be Asteroid, and I thought that Lauren and others were playing a trick on me. Like, oh yeah, Asteroid's here. He flew in through the night. Like the way they described it, it seemed almost implausible. So I actually just wrote it off as okay, nice joke, guys. You got some guy to pretend to be Asteroid, and he didn't sound like Asteroid too. That was the other thing. Like the guy that was there did not sound like Asteroid at all. Maybe he uses a voice changer or something on the app. A lot of people do that, but it was very strange.
Well, we've got Pink Shirt
Could have been
Guy
one of
up here too, who actually has seen Asteroid all in Santa Monica last October, and also at the Pleb Party that night, so he can verify.
Yeah, that was Asteroid. I just don't know where I want to start with my conversation. First of all, I feel a little personally attacked about the whole Guamanese dolphin sex surgery experimentation. I think Eric directed that directly at me. And just to be clear, we were looking at porpoises as well and other marine life. It wasn't just dolphins, okay? So
Very
that's one thing.
inclusive.
And then
You are so much more inclusive than me, man. I am so sorry for that, for being so short sighted.
it was only a couple of $100 billion. It's not like, and I do have a
Chump change.
degree, several degrees in it now. So 14 years of school. So thanks for that.
And then yeah, Asteroid. When we were in LA in October, they wouldn't let him in the hotel. The flannel and the scruff probably didn't help, but I can't say I blame Joe. That's
Well,
all.
and the same goes for you. I mean, no offense, but when I thought pink shirt guy, for some reason I had a dainty image in my head, and when I see this epic titan of a man, like I was a little intimidated to be honest. But we played cards and that was fun.
That was great. I appreciate you, coming to find us where we were to play the poker game, Joe. That was cool, and that's why the pink shirt guy name is what it is. It's a little less assuming than if I just walk into a room. So
It's
that's
very
kind of the play on that.
it's very Sun Tzu, very Sun Tzu. I thought you were going to be I don't know 5'11", 6 foot, 165 pounds, and in walked in Hulk Hogan in a pink shirt. It was pretty awesome.
You guys are far too kind. I'll take the size as a proxy for all the intelligence represented here.
Are you running a cycle right now, pink shirt guy? You taking trend? That's what they were telling me. That's all I heard is that they think a lot of Bitcoiners are on steroids. So I'm just curious, what are you running?
No, it's creatine all day, every day. I've replaced solid food with creatine, pre-workout with creatine in it, and then just more creatine. And then I actually have an alarm set at 3:30 a.m. Pacific time and Eastern time to take more creatine. So that's
By
it.
the way, speaking of people completely jacked, like Terrence is basically a piece of steel. Just so you all know, like he is rock solid. Like
Yeah,
that scene in
That's what happens when you spend so much time with Tom
well,
Cruise.
yeah, I know. Do you know that scene in Rocky Four where Drago is beating on Rocky like relentlessly, and he's like he's a piece of iron. That's basically Terrence.
yeah. He does all his own stunts too. I've heard Terrence does.
Well, that just must mean that Joe has legs of steel then, because he offered to throw me on his shoulders when I just wanted to take a photo with him. I've never had a photo with
I,
Joe.
I'm
And he,
surprised you accepted. You're like one of the first people I've made that request to who has accepted it. I mean, even my wife turned me down. I honestly don't know why you accepted it. You must have been intoxicated.
well, they say they say don't trust to verify, but I'll be honest, in the moment when you said that, because I know you as this attorney, I actually just trusted. I was like, well, he's an attorney, it must be okay.
That's a lie. That's a total lie.
No, I seriously did. And that's why I was laughing when the security came over and they were like, "Oh, you got to get off there. You got to get down." And I just like, Joe's a litigator. He's an attorney.
Well,
What like if he
that was my
That's
response to
why
them.
they
Like,
have.
I, well, no, Lauren, that was my response. They're like, so you got to stop that. We're gonna have to ask you to leave. And I said, you realize I am a litigator? Like, you know, they weren't impressed.
The,
I saw Terrence actually look down at Joe, and they made eye contact. And he looked at him and said, "Joe, as my counsel, do I have to get down?" And Joe thought for a second and said, "No, you don't have to get down. You can if you want to, but you don't have to."
well,
Joe was the wind beneath my wings.
is that the photo where you were on his shoulders? Is that the one we're talking about?
I posted
I'm
Yeah.
that in
surprised
that
they got a photo of that too. It
Joe,
happened
that
very
too.
quickly.
Joe, that might have been the prank. I mean, a guy on another guy's shoulders is like a reverse teabag. I'm just gonna throw that out
Is
there.
it?
That might have been the
Oh my
prank. I don't know.
God. And
But
then
we
Dark
digress.
Side was rolling up. I thought Dark Side was gonna topple us.
By the way, speaking of, so we were talking about like appearances, like pink shirt, asteroid, not looking like they sounded and whatnot. Is it just me, or have you guys noticed that? First of all, the ladies in Bitcoin are all very attractive. Like we have a really attractive group in Bitcoin, and I don't know that's because attractive girls find Bitcoin or because Bitcoin. I don't know. It's something to think about, but I just have noticed, like just walking around the conference, like we have a big, really attractive group of ladies, and I haven't seen that in like real estate. I used to go to tons of real estate meetups and stuff, and you don't see that over there. And a lot of the ladies do look like their photos. In fact, some of them looked a lot better than their. Typically your profile picture looks slightly better than you. I mean, like look at Lawrence; he looks decent there, but when you meet him in person, you're like, oh, this is Ichabod Crane.
I love you,
But it's like
Terrence.
yeah, love you. Yeah, he in Vegas, he whispered in my ear. He's like, "I have a very big note." I was like,
Let's
that
remember,
was
I was
really
unserved the
uncomfortable.
entire time. So, with context.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like so I got to meet in person a lot. Peg and Jennifer and unsupervised the Vardy girls. Like, there's just so many beautiful and attractive women in Bitcoin, and I don't know what that is, or if you guys are noticing. Is it just me?
I think there's probably some correlation there between self sovereignty and personal responsibility, and not externalizing everything that's difficult in your life, but owning it for yourself and stepping up and putting your best foot forward. I think there's probably a pretty good overlap there between Bitcoiners in general and how the lovely ladies in Bitcoin present themselves.
Let me just preface this by saying I'm not into dudes, but if I were, I would probably say the same thing about the gents. So I think there's a lot of well, thank God Peg's up here to save my ass. Peg, how are you?
Oh, hey guys. Um, yeah, I've noticed the same thing that Terrence was talking. We are amazing. And I think it's because we are not spending our money on Botox, we're spending it on Bitcoin. And Bitcoin really makes a person look good, I gotta say. Look at Kathy Wood. She's 66 years old. How does she do it? How does she continue to look so young? I'm gonna say it's Bitcoin. That's all I got.
Joe.
I know we got smart people up here from other disciplines, so I'm sorry for going off the trail from Bitcoin for a moment. But can someone give me a rundown of this 250th anniversary of the military July event that's coming up? I've been hearing some chatter about it. I'm curious if anybody has any takes on it or knows anything about it.
Uh,
Is that the thing old Taylor's been talking about?
I
Or
think so. That's why I'm exploring it. So I'm just wondering what I'm missing on. Isn't this just a bit parade? Is there some sort of meaning behind it more than that?
Yeah, Joe, I've got a call later today. I'm a sponsor of the National Veterans Parade in DC on November 9th. So if any of you guys are going there, I'd be more than happy to have you in our section at the end of the parade with a bunch of generals. I've got a call about that later today. If you'd like, I can do a little recon for you and ask them, what the details are that they know and get back to you, because it's very interesting. We're supposed to have like a big military exposition, like kind of showing off some of the new equipment. But I don't know that for a fact. I think Puncher's on; he probably would know. But I have a call at 4 o'clock today, so I could definitely share that with you on Monday.
yeah, let's
Yeah.
ask the F-16 fighter pilot. That's you, Puncher.
Wait, is Puncher here? I don't even see him.
Oh,
Puncher's back.
Who are you talking to?
I thought I
He's
added
been gone
him.
for half an hour.
No, but
What?
he's here. I see him.
Was the longest half an hour of my life.
Okay, well, I don't see him. Speak up or forever hold your peace, Puncher, if you're here. But the okay, can I just ask another like political question? So, for those that follow the political calendar, we have the primaries that start in earnest in really Q1 of 2026. We're sitting here approaching the end, believe it or not, of Q2. Obviously, Q4 is usually most of it's a wash because of holiday season. So my question is, we've got a stable coin bill that's going to probably get across the line. We've got the budget reconciliation bill, the big beautiful bill that's going to likely get across the line. Do we expect any other congressional achievements before the Republicans head into the midterm? Because, if you get into next year, Q2, it's basically over. That's the very little, if anything, gets done during the summer before an election. So I'm curious from Eric or anybody else if you have a take that we're basically done, like we're locked in for those legislative achievements.
Yeah, I mean, there's a break in August, and I think that what we'll see, it's a very, very good topic, Joe. I think that what we'll see, there's a few tax bills that are on the docket right now, like getting a bonus depreciation back to 100%. I actually expect that to be voted on, but there's really nothing huge beyond the Genesis Act or Genius Act and the big, beautiful bill, which I'm 50-50 on whether that goes through or not after yesterday, which is a good thing. I don't think it's a great bill, but at the same time, yeah, I don't see anything else large on there. I see campaigns building up and fundraising kicking in right now, big time. But we're still selecting candidates on both sides of the aisle, and in August they'll take a break. Yeah, I'm with you, Joe. I don't think anything really big goes.
So in light of that, if you do get some softening, not a recession, because that's not my call, but I expect some softening of the economy. Um, do you think that the GOP is headed into a real tough midterm, in your view?
100%, I do. Yeah, I think the Democrat Party is in huge. And just to be clear to everyone out there, I'm an independent. I'm a conservative, but I think both political parties are full of crap. Yeah, I think the Republicans are in really bad shape right now moving into the midterms because of the lack of things they've gotten done, the miscommunication with constituents and their actual activities. I think both. That's kind of one of the reasons I think Elon mentioned a third party, which I tweeted out. That's not going to save you either. Decentralization will. But at the same time, I think a lot of conservative seats are up for grabs. A lot. I think both parties are in real bad shape right now.
Wow, thank you. That's something. Go ahead, Matt.
Don't you guys think too? I mean, I know obviously we're still a ways away. Obviously, we're already looking towards those midterms, but I mean, a whole lot can happen between now and then, and people's memories are pretty short. So I feel like if I guess you could just say if things were to be projected forward right now, then I would definitely agree with Eric that um, popularity has definitely waned from the euphoria that most presidential runs start with. So like anytime somebody comes into office, it's kind of just a wait and see moment. But I don't know. I feel like so much could happen between now and then that it's almost hard to call where things really are. But I guess kind of the point that your guys are getting at is just that at least if things were to project forward right now the way they are, then they would be in trouble. Because like you could still have a lot happen that could swing people in either direction, right?
Well, what would swing it in favor of the GOP and Trump? Can you a strong economy? Is that your view?
I mean, I guess yeah. You could have hypothetically, if you had continued strong economy to the point where people felt like, in real terms, their purchasing power was going up and there was more job opportunities. You saw real wages increase, and then if you actually had some stability with wherever tariffs settle out, if people got comfortable with that and markets rallied, then there's at least an argument to be made that you could see increased support going into the midterms. But I think people are a little salty about them not trying to at least get rid of some of the various three-letter agencies. I know that's one of the things that I was hopeful but reluctant about. I didn't think it would actually happen, and I feel pretty vindicated on that. But I was at least hopeful that they would try to get rid of some of the three-letter agencies that I feel are way too much bureaucracy. So I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling now, but
Well, Matt, let me and Joe, when I'm saying these seats are up for grabs, I don't think they're up for grabs from switching from Republican to Democrat. I think you're going to see a lot of primary activity to remove one Republican for another in many areas.
Wow,
I,
that's interesting. Can
I,
you unpack that a lot? I really want to hear about that.
Yeah, so you have guys out there. I'll give you examples. So it's not necessarily Congress and the Senate. Those are national campaigns. Like in Texas, we have a lot of bills that have been passed here that people are very unhappy with at the state level. We have a lot of people who have an R next to their name who are essentially communist, and they've been able to pull the wool over our eyes for years. So the more active people get in their local campaigns, I'll express this nonstop. Get active in your local communities, your school board votes. We just had one here that the entire city was talking about trying to implement non-educational things in the educational system with dark money. I think you're seeing a lot of people realize that there were a lot of people who kissed the ring to get into office again, and they're just following the same trends of Washington D.C. again. So I think you're going to see a lot of these guys. There's already a lot of movement around the country to primary existing seats that are up for midterm election, and it's going to come down to Matt's right, and it's a great perspective. A ton can happen between now and then, but the current view right now, at least in Texas, and I think in my home state and yours as well, you're going to see a lot of that there, Joe. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of infighting with Republicans and Democrats on both sides of the aisle in every state. This is actually a really good thing for the American political system. For about 3 decades, people have paid attention to the presidential election and then voted completely down ticket for their party. And a lot of people sneak in from one party to another 5 years ahead of time, get a reputation as a Republican or a Democrat to get that down ticket vote. I think for the first time in my lifetime, Americans are finally waking up to the fact that every single position of power in the government needs to be, we need to dig on these people and make sure they're following through. So, yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of primarying activity from folks who are not following their desires of their constituents. I think that's going to be a very common trend in the next midterm.
so do you think that moves towards maybe like more populist candidates over across the board, whether it's left or right?
I think we're going to see independents give a run. They're not going to win, but I think they're going to steal votes in a lot of areas. I think that we are definitely watching populism take place. Whether that can win against the existing establishment and the money train that exists with large national campaigns, that's up for debate. That is a really powerful, really well run engine. But the local level, state level, I think you're seeing a lot of that. A lot of people who are just looking for populists who, if I were a politician, which I never want to be, if I were a politician right now, I'd run on basic economics, border security, stuff like that. But I'd also run on the fact that I have an open door policy in my office where I'll actually staff someone who can listen to your concerns and answer them in real time. That's really where we're going at the local level. I think it's going to take a few years for that to happen at the national level, though.
Before we go to David, I think Puncher is now here. Puncher, I gave you the perfect introduction and you left me hanging.
I'm sorry, buddy. I am in a bad spot. Happy to defer to everybody else. I'm a bad speaker today. What was the introduction?
I just said the F-16 fighter pilot is here to, I forget what we were talking about now, but I was the only
The
one that
Fourth of
saw
Well,
July
you.
parade.
I am a subject matter expert there, but not sure what the context is.
So I can jump in here on a related note. So we were talking about the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army, and apparently they have a real big parade coming up. But what I wanted to mention is something I heard in passing from Marty Bent that I think is worth digging a little deeper in. As most of you are probably aware, next year we celebrate the nation's 250th anniversary or birthday. And wouldn't it be nice if we could all rally around the U.S. issuing bit bonds as part of this celebration, as a national security issue, as a way to create a positive future for the youth, to reduce dependence on foreign creditors? We can tie this message in to that huge 250th birthday celebration for the United States. I just want to propose that a lot of you are more influential than I am. I just want to propose it as something that we could interject into the conversation as that 250th birthday celebration kicks off.
Yeah, I think this thing's going to run its natural course. I can tell you that David Sachs, Bo Hines, the Trump family, um, something is coming. I don't know exactly what it is. I can tell you that military officers, flag officer level, will be testifying with Senator Lummis's in front of Senator Lummis's committee about these things. They're well aware of our national debt, our you know the issues we're facing and how those are existential threats. Um, so I can't tell you what it's going to look like. I just don't know, but I do know that at the highest levels, people are aware of it, and I think the bit bonds are going to run their natural course and in short order. That's my 2 cents.
Hey, would you be able to give me a rundown on bit bonds? How are they issued? How they pay? Just like overall basic, explain like I'm 5 year old how that would work and the benefits.
Yeah, dark side would be the best guy to do that, but I'll give my 2 cents. They're not going to be directly issued by the Treasury. They're going to be structured products in which the Treasury is the borrower, and as a result of the Bitcoin component, let's just say it's 10% of the bond, that the interest that the Treasury will have to pay will be low. Let's just pick a number, 1%. That aids in helping reduce the interest expense that we have to pay as a nation. And over, let's just say it's a 10-year bond, that at the end of 10 years, there'll be a guaranteed rate for the purchaser of that bond at, say, 4.5%. But they would split the upside in the 10% component, which is invested in Bitcoin. So the effective yield or rate on that bond would be somewhere much higher, let's say from 9% to the low teens, maybe even better, depending on the performance of Bitcoin. But you can see it's almost like a self fulfilling prophecy, or what I would call a self licking lollipop. as more entities, municipalities, the Treasury are dealing in bit bonds or issuing bit bonds, that creates demand for Bitcoin, which drives up the price for Bitcoin, which enables those higher returns on top of just the regular and growing demand for Bitcoin in general worldwide. Not the best explanation. Eric could probably do a little better, but that's essentially what we're talking about. So it's not a direct issuance. It's through a third party, say 21, perhaps, with their partnership with SoftBank, Cantor Fitzgerald, and Tether, and they would act as that issuer of the bonds for retail purchase or institutional purchase. Eric, you got anything to add to that? What I miss?
No, I think that's pretty solid, and I agree. I also agree with Joe on this matter here. Is that they're very much trying to strengthen the treasury market. So a group like 21 issuing these things would be accurate. And I'm going to steal self-licking lollipop from you too. That's a great terminology, because if you're creating the bonds, you have to buy the Bitcoin. That takes away demand. But I think it's a pretty good explanation. Dark is definitely the guy to talk to on that.
So in this scenario, let's say that 5 years down the road, Bitcoin does not go up, it goes down to 50%, just as a speculation. Let's say Bitcoin is down. So what happens to the bonds?
Yeah, that's the main
Well,
question.
obviously, yeah.
That's the
I
main
mean,
question. Yeah, Dark's the guy to talk to on this. I'm not a big Bitbon guy. I would endorse the idea if it's there, but the structure and model. I don't know, Puncher, who was the guy who gave the presentation on that? He did a brilliant job. It's like 12 minutes at the conference in New York. I would watch
um,
him.
yeah. Well, you can look at Adam Livingston too. If you follow him, he's an excellent follow on Twitter. He does probably one or two posts a day that are very well produced. If you look at his, I'll try to find it and post it in the nest real quick. He'll run through it very quickly. He goes through the downside risk, the upside risk, how it would potentially be structured. But again, the idea is that as you're creating demand through these sovereigns, the idea that the price of Bitcoin will go down of a finite, um, commodity is a very low risk because you're creating the demand in and of itself, and that's where the term self-licking lollipop comes from.
Mm,
Puncher,
Thanks.
isn't that part of the investment risk? If Bitcoin doesn't perform,
Yeah,
they're
of course.
guaranteed the 1%.
Yeah, that is the 1%, and then I think whatever the triggers are, of a certain performance of the underlying Bitcoin component of it, you're guaranteed in this example 4.5%, assuming Bitcoin performs, and then anything above that is just added alpha.
And I think it's also important to note that this is if you're based in the United States, potentially, depending upon the legal structure, I can't speak to that, a tax-free
Yeah, that would
bond.
seem to be a smart move to make it
It could
tax-free bond.
potentially
Yeah, so
perform
there's that added
10
benefit.
plus percent.
Broadsword.
And I would also comment that I think that, granted, 21 could potentially use this as a pilot. Strategic reserve potentially. But you need to get the political clout first, so the bonds have to perform on their own.
I was trying to let Marilyn finish. Hey, Puncher, question for you. Do you still believe in the traditional 4-year Bitcoin cycle? I'm not talking about the halving. I'm talking about us going into having a blow off top of some kind in 2025 and then going into an 18-month plus bear market. Why or why not?
I am less a believer in the 4-year cycle. I think we've kind of hit escape velocity as far as Bitcoin adoption is concerned, and that cycle is no longer as big of a component of the price of Bitcoin as it used to be. But the honest answer is, I have no earthly idea. Every time I try to make a prediction about Bitcoin price, I end up being wrong. I generally think that Bitcoin is undervalued currently. Um, but again, every time I make a prediction, I'm off. So I'm out of the prediction business.
It's undervalued, yet it always feels expensive.
Yeah, well, I told you about the cashier I ran into yesterday. I mean, no, look, we are so early, 0.2% of global assets, stores of value. I mean, I'm asking everybody, I'm on a vacation in Hawaii, I'm asking everybody, I'm wearing Bitcoin t-shirts. I have no interaction with the people I do talk to, have no idea. And the people that do have an idea say I'm too late or I can't afford Bitcoin. So, we talk about it ad nauseum, day in and day out, all the fine details of Bitcoin and all the Bitcoin complex. And the fact of the matter is, we are the 0.2%. So we're way early.
And I think that feedback from the market is legitimate. It's a very small percentage, which is why I like the SBR conversations, bit bonds, very interesting conversations. But I always tell people, like, let it play out, see what happens. Great conversations, but we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, and we
I find it interesting about Michael, sorry, Terrence, about Michael Saylor looking to go on Joe Rogan, right? That's where you start to get, mass awareness. I'm not saying mass adoption, but mass awareness about Bitcoin. Now, my circle of friends know all about it because I'm relentless. I'm like a record that won't stop playing in our text messages and things like that. And they're just starting to come around after a decade of me hounding them about it. And they went through all the phases, right? It's a Ponzi scheme. It's too risky. It's too volatile, blah, blah, blah. And now, thankfully, a lot of my friends are starting to dip their toe in the water. Um, and, so just all I can say is the average person knows little or nothing about Bitcoin. And we talk about it all the time.
But interest is accelerating. That's the thing, is like people are now getting curious about it. And I think that's phase one. You got to look at things in stages. Read like the psychology of a buyer or things like that. There's always this area of interest, and then later down the road is action. So we are really very early.
Yeah, and there's always going to be waves, regardless of the 4-year cycle. It's part of it's just psychology, and part of it is what the promise of Bitcoin is. And if we were to surge, let's say, to 200K by tomorrow, not only are there going to be additional OGs that want to sell, there's people that just came in. Not everyone understands exactly what they hold. You would hope that people are just take advantage of that to spend it on things they want, but some are going to just view it as a trade and they're going to go back into dollars. But the 4-year cycle thing is really interesting, and it really made sense early on due to the design of the halving. Because in theory, it's like, well, there's going to be suddenly, after this specific block, there's going to be that much less Bitcoin coming into the circulating supply. But at the same time, with 21 million Bitcoin, or let's say, 16.8 or 17 million that are accessible due to lost keys and inaccessible addresses, there really is that many Bitcoin available regardless of the halving, because everyone will have a price point when they suddenly do want to spend, or if they do still view it as a trade. But the 4-year cycle thing is interesting to me because it's not just the halving, of course, and I think we've talked about it in these spaces before. It's just the global money supply and the circulation of money along with new administrations. And a new administration comes in and they want to push forward everything and they want people to like them. They also want to get voted again. And so suddenly when you pour more money into the system, which does tend to happen in these 4-year cycles, Bitcoin operates as a sort of pure vacuum for that. So in a sense that will always happen, but I don't know if we're going to have these 80% drops again. But then again, what is the black swan that we don't know about, right? What exchange suddenly blows up and everyone just freaks out, because something like that is going to happen.
Well, and I think that you have to look at like where the cycle is. So there's a lot of people who say, I don't want Wall Street involved. Wall Street's actually the thing that will weather that storm. They don't care if you make money, they care if they make money. And all these ETFs and everything runs on an annual fee. So if Bitcoin loses a tremendous amount of value, they lose a lot of value. So they'll encourage their salespeople to keep selling into it to keep that price balance. We'll definitely see corrections. There's corrections in everything.
And there's signs and wonders too, right? Like just small things that you're seeing that you didn't see 5 years ago. My church now accepts Bitcoin. So when they put it up on the screen that make your tithe. They say we accept Bitcoin. Well, that's interesting. Going through an airport, those kind of walk escalators where you're supposed to walk, and a lot of people stand on them. There's a guy going the other direction, and he's got a Bitcoin hat. He immediately sees me. I have a Bitcoin shirt on, and we both point at each other and give a thumbs up. You have 35,000 people plus going to Las Vegas for a conference for 4 or 5 days. The guys who are on traditional finance podcasts and spaces who poo-pooed just 2 years ago, poo-pooed the very notion of Bitcoin, are now taking it seriously and talking about it. Danish yesterday was on one of Gary's spaces. Danish was one of the biggest, scoffers at Bitcoin. Now he's talking about how he's got an allocation. He's not completely orange pilled, he said yesterday, but he's coming around to it. So signs and wonders, and you know, gradually,
My
then suddenly.
my favorite comment on that space. I was listening in the audience while I was doing my workout yesterday, and I think it was Josh Mann said that Donish sounds like a know-it-all who doesn't.
Yeah, but he's intellectually honest, right? Like I always thought that too. But we were on a marathon session yesterday where he went through the big beautiful bill in excruciating detail. And look, the guy's a reasonable guy, and he's coming around. All I ask is that someone is intellectually curious and honest, and
That's fair.
the rest will take care of itself. If
I
you're if
agree
you're
with
gonna
that.
be if you're gonna stand in your ignorance and be arrogant in it, well then it's gonna be a rough path for you.
And if I can address the unit bias, we had a great wolf space a couple of days ago where unit bias came up. I think frequency on price is a very important thing, like time over 100,000. Well, I think we're on week 3 now at price being over 100,000. That's actually an attractor for new buyers, not a detractor. We're still thinking of, the $10 a year DCA people. The next wave of buyers that come into this are millionaires followed by billionaires, and millionaires want to buy expensive things that are scarce, that are rare. So the frequency, the amount of time that we spend over 100K is attracting buyers at the same time. So everything Puncher said is correct. I mean, I can go through 2 days ago, I was on the phone with 2 60-year-old people trying to deploy $1 million or $2 million into Bitcoin who didn't understand a thing about it. I probably will hand those over to you, Terrence. I think they need your help. But yeah, it's just fascinating to watch this curiosity. But just remember, that's the first stage of psychological buying. It comes far before action, especially for big players.
My accountant asked me the other day, he said, "You'll be proud of me. I own Bitcoin." I said, "How do you own it?" He goes, "I bought the ETF." I go, "You don't own Bitcoin." But let's move on to the next discussion, right? A lot of guys had their hands up. I'm sorry, I'm not sure who.
I think it was Maryland or Broadsword. You guys, whoever was first.
Yeah, so
And
I didn't want to. I know we're moving on from the topic, but I just want to throw it into the audience. Maybe there's more macro nerds in there. DM me if you're thinking about this, because my thesis is that the 4-year cycle's done compared to the previous cycles. I'm not going to get into the details why, but now I'm trying to make a thesis of how I'm wrong and what structurally has to happen or what's the black swan. And I've been mulling over this. So if anybody wants to have this conversation, I'll love to have it. I'll land the plane there. Thanks.
Coinbase blows up or BlackRock gets hacked.
Yeah, but that could be a small retracement. I'm talking about like an actual structural 18-month plus bear market, right? Like if you look at back to the first half cycle and then you look at the first cycle, everything was on chain. Then we get it. So like guys like Willy Woo were checking what the wallets were doing to try to play it. Then in 2017, beginning of 2018, we have futures contracts. So of course, Wall Street and the guys that knew what they were doing, like not Wall Street in general, but the guys that know what they're doing, were buying up, knowing the futures are coming, and then shorting into it, driving the price down. So like, you can look at the structurally macro different conditions in every single cycle. And I'm a macro nerd, so I've been going through this, but I'm trying to make a thesis of like, okay, where could be wrong just to, well, I don't know. I'm a fucking nerd, so thanks.
Maryland.
but wouldn't it be paper Bitcoin? It'd be the same thing that SBF did, right? I mean, just at a larger scale because of Wall Street. You might be able to offset that with regulatory capture, but I still think that it's a universal global asset. So there's going to be other countries or areas where paper Bitcoin arises, right? That could cause these bubbles. Going back to the comment that was just made regarding Wall Street and being anti-Wall Street, I think if we all envision what Bitcoin could do, taking it to, Tomer's vision, then Wall Street has to get into this game. We'll get into this game, and Wall Street is, as long as you align the incentives to enrich Wall Street, it becomes your biggest marketing um, tool for the entire world, right? That's how you Trojan horses through Wall
Yeah,
Street.
think of stockbrokers
And
as salespeople, right? So every new firm that opens up, they're salespeople to pitch their hundreds and thousands of clients on Bitcoin or Bitcoin ETFs. You're 100% right. That marketing angle, which we've never had, crypto has marketers. We do not. We have free people promoting. That's a huge advantage.
Shepard.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to make the comment, and like I think Puncher went over it. Is I really think we're starting to get a network effect, more or less, because for instance, probably 2 weeks ago, I met my first Bitcoiner in the wild. Is this guy? He's kind of talking about real estate, and I was like, okay, well, real estate's all going great, but I'm kind of looking at companies like MicroStrategy, Bitcoin, more or less. He's like, oh yeah, I remember my days when I first invested in shitcoin, and I was like, okay, if you know the term shitcoin, then I think I know where our discussion is going. And he goes to his girlfriend, you better remember my 12 key phrases or keywords. And my point being is like, I've been in this now for maybe 7, 8 years, and this is the first time I've ever started meeting people more frequently in public that actually understand what Bitcoin is, understands the difference between shitcoins. So I think we are slowly getting there in a network effect, and then to the 4 year cycle point, I think it's when we start to dampen. And that's the only comment I wanted to make there, because to me that was profound. It's like, holy crap, you understand what Bitcoin is versus what a security is or a technology or different type of asset there. And that's all I got to say.
Hey, if you've just jumped on stage, raise your hand if you want to speak. Otherwise, I'm not sure why you jumped up. BTC Noah.
Yeah, I just had a orange pill story in Vegas. It's a little bit past the. Well, anyway, this is what happened.
We lost you, Noah.
The guy is being
Come out of the
turned
arc so
in
we could hear you.
after we went to the club and whatever. So, and a lady walks. She sits down next to me and she says $1,000 an hour. And I look up. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, wow. And she said, yeah, and things cost more now, inflation, blah 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 blah. And I said, well, we have a Bitcoin conference going on, and Bitcoiners really don't have money. We only have Bitcoin. And I suggested to her, I said, do you accept Bitcoin? And she was like, no, I don't really know. So I'd say, hey, you should get a Bitcoin wallet, and instead of the tramp stamp, get a QR code tattooed, and you can start accepting Bitcoin. And she was like, I don't think she was going for the QR code tattoo, but I think maybe I orange pilled the oldest profession in the world. That's all.
And in the end, you paid her with cash. No, I'm
No,
just joking.
I
I'm
would.
just teasing you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and next time tell her that all Bitcoiners have is money. We're the only ones that actually have it. She's the one that has a surrogate or a substitute or a debasing currency. Ian, I see
The
your hand
problem,
up.
Terrence,
What?
the problem though, I was just gonna say there's one problem with this, and that is that if you're showering someone with open dimes, I just don't think it really rings the same as dollar bills. So we've got to figure that out as a
No, you just put a
community.
ledger necklace around her neck.
That's why you'd have the paper Bitcoin, so you can pay the hookers.
Ian, I see all
So
your hand up. Yeah.
yeah, I joined when you guys were talking like what would be the next bear market, and I suspected it would be quantum computing, not necessarily the quantum computers themselves, but the rumors and the lack of preparedness about quantum computing will lead to price depreciation as well as possible forks. And I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but the average person is waking up to quantum computers more and more, and they're getting more accurate information. There's still a lot of people that think that SHA-256 is going to be part of the problem, but those mostly Bitcoiners and not the average person.
Which is funny because
Because
Bitcoin doesn't even use SHA-256, but yes.
Well, it uses it for mining, but not for security of the
Yes,
wallet.
correct. Yeah, and I have a SegWit wallet, so if everyone wants to send me their Bitcoin when this FUD comes out, I will hang on to it for you until we solve this, and then I'll send it back.
You're gonna send double back, right?
Yes, 24 words for every set of 12 words you give me.
That's clearly double. So the my concern with having all of this, the shareholders, the ETFs, the BlackRocks of the world involved in Bitcoin, is that they end up becoming people with opinions about what Bitcoin should and shouldn't do. They become shareholders in the mind space, and they're very loud. We don't have community spokespeople that can compete with BlackRock's CNN announcements. So it's really hard for us, and we have a lot of disadvantages when we're trying to compete with BlackRock for determining what direction it goes in. And the developers, unfortunately, have not taken a step forward regarding quantum. They're starting to discuss it, but this is one of those things where we really have to get ahead of it, or the BlackRocks and ETFs of the world are going to just control the result.
I don't see any more hands right now. Were you about to?
I'll jump
All
in
right,
here.
Broad.
So Ian, so yeah, to that point, like luckily this is not a this year, next year kind of problem. We have been talking about this a lot on these spaces, Homer and stuff, like saying a lot of good things that we have a bit of time, and then compared to, like, let's say the op return drama right now, which is such a small, almost nothing burger, if this starts becoming a real threat, then Bitcoiners will, like, hopefully rally together and push through the code and check it and do all that kind of stuff. I think if this, okay, if Satoshi's wallet, let's say, gets hacked by Quantum and stuff like that, yeah, this could be a very big black swan event. But on the short term, I think it's just a lot of FUD, and hopefully we see the signs and set some tripwire, set some tripwires and stuff, so we see it coming before it does.
Yeah, we don't need to get into quantum right now. We had a whole space 2 days ago on this. We talked about it for 3 hours straight. So
Yeah, quantum out your butt yesterday.
yeah, exactly. Hey, Lauren, I'm not sure if you're there or you're
I'm always
re-alphabetizing your
here.
CD collection, what you're
Always
doing over there.
here, buddy. You know it. Yeah, thinking
Well, so
about.
once you're done refolding your socks, did you want to close out the space or you want to keep going?
I
I
was
just have to
I was
jump,
gonna.
but you can stay.
Yeah, no, we can take us around the horn, buddy.
Did you refold your sleeping bag from your camping trip?
I'm actually airing it out as we speak.
All right, beautiful. So before we go around, looks David Jara, you just jumped right back up. Did you want to chime in? We're just all saying our closing comments for this space.
Oh yeah, just a thought on the bit bonds. I think the U.S. government would be the big kahuna, which obviously we'd all be excited for. But I think states and municipalities would also be candidates for adopting this, and even medium-sized cities that, big medium-sized cities that we might not be all that familiar with. They could start getting in line for this as well, which
Well,
would be
even
tremendously
companies,
exciting.
corporations, people, like it works for
Yeah,
anyone.
awesome.
How about you, Peg? We haven't heard from you in a while. And apparently we still don't hear from you. Am I the only one that doesn't hear Peg, by the way?
Nah,
Nope.
can't hit that.
I don't hear anything.
All right, Peg, that was really nice. Hey, Bodie, you jumped up here and we haven't heard from you. Did you want to share something with the group?
Oh shit, man! I wasn't even looking at my thing.
Yeah, try to
Yo,
look at your
what's good,
thing.
Pay
Bitcoiners?
special attention to your thing.
Yeah, man. Man, I was listening. I don't know. I think it was interesting. The guy was talking about orange pilling the prostitute, and like getting her to take crypto. That's great. But I think Bitcoin adoption is much more than that. And I was actually at the Bitcoin conference as well, and it was interesting because I was working with a client who is a cold storage wallet provider, and like just talking to so many people at the Bitcoin conference about holding their assets, and what exchanges they're using and what they do with their Bitcoin after they pull it off of the exchange, and how many people are just uneducated about, paper wallets. Someone mentioned like bitaddress.org, creating your own, private keys securely offline, and then beating the institutions, right? Like it's more than just taking the payments, right? We have the ability to actually contribute to the network, right? You can actually be a miner, you can actually be a part of the blockchain, which is more important, I think, than just like receiving the currency, right? Which is a big first step. But yeah, I think that's a valuable bit of like maybe going the extra step and educating people about at least using like Bitcoin Core and like what the actual technology is and how they can be a part of it. Because the only way to beat the institutions is to have more individuals contributing, right?
Yeah, that's all good. But I mean, if you're talking to some retail person who doesn't know about Bitcoin, I think that's a step too far to talk about Bitcoin Core or mining. Just give them some Bitcoin. Bitcoin is for hoes and for bros. Peg, Peg, we still don't hear you.
Not sure I
So
like that transition, Terrence. There was been
no,
some.
I said bros. I went from
Okay,
bros to Peg. I didn't go from hoes
okay,
to
okay.
Peg. Yeah. Matt, how about you?
Well, I'm a bro and I'll talk. I like Bitcoin. That's it. No, I'm kidding. It was a good talk today, guys. I always enjoy the conversations. Hope everybody has a good weekend. I don't know if you guys are kind of back in your normal routine now from the conference or not, but I'm definitely interested to see what takes the news waves now that Elon and Trump seem to be simmering down. So just wanted to give a quick announcement that did talk with Peruvian Bull, and he's going to stop by on Monday when Darkside and I are hosting. So if there's anything you guys want us to cover or talk about, please shoot me a DM, and I'll make sure we touch on it. So yeah, have a good weekend, everybody.
You actually just reminded me, Matt, like there's a bunch of guests that I think Puncher separately and or he and I together have talked to. I have a list, but I just haven't even reached out yet. I wasn't sure if this space likes it when we have guests or they prefer to not, but yeah, there's a bunch of good people that I know we can bring over.
The way I figure is at least, the feedback that I got when I used to host my spaces every week was a guest is good if they get integrated into the normal flow of conversation. But it seemed like people didn't like the one-on-one interview style. I got a lot of feedback on that. So my plan is just basically, hey, Peruvian Bull's there. He's not a regular, so maybe bring a different perspective to the conversation, but not going to try to make it too structured or prevent anybody from coming up. So if anybody wants to come up, ask a question, it'll still be that normal flow. It's just with a new face that we don't normally have on stage.
So it's kind of like when The View, when those ladies have a guest person just sitting there on stage. Is that what you're saying?
It's
Yeah, we're
exactly like the
basically
view.
Bitcoin the View.
Yeah, you're the Whoopi Goldberg of this view, Terrence.
Beautiful. How about you, Broad?
Cold storage your Bitcoin. Make sure you understand self sovereignty. That's the biggest thing, and then like one of the greatest thing about Bitcoin. And I don't know, hit me up if you want to nerd out on macro.
Not me though, just to be clear. I'm not macro anymore, so don't nerd out about me. That'd be weird.
Yeah.
Oh, Matt, I always nerd about you. Come on.
How about you, Puncher? Are you going to be talking about Elon and Trump today in other spaces?
No, I'm all Elon and Trumped out. Matter of fact, I'm immune from all that stuff, as is everybody else who's in Bitcoin. It's all mildly amusing, but you can sit back. You've got an impenetrable veneer of Bitcoin around you. You're in safe harbor, and I guess the goal is to get everybody else into that safe harbor. Life is great. It's going to be very wild and interesting over the next few years, but we are on the island, so it's a great place to be, and I'm just happy for everybody. I'm grateful for everybody on these spaces and the opportunity we have over the next few years, particularly if you're a young person. Just connect some dots, and then the key to success is massive action. If you see an opportunity, take it. The only way you're going to figure it out. Thanks, guys.
I love it. Beautifully said. Speaking of youngster, let's go over to Lauren, who is still in his 20s.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Hey, I posted a picture of Jeff, who was tragically taken from us during the Bitcoin conference, probably walking back from a party that many of us were at. Noah and I were there. So just remember him, his family in your prayers. We've kind of tried to end most of the week with just thoughts of him. Anyway, forgive one another. Say you're sorry. Be kind. Uh, get your keys, please. Don't let Coinbase hold your Bitcoin for the love of God. Other than that, have a wonderful weekend. This is about your family, your circle, your closest circle. Enjoy that. Don't spend all your time on spaces. With that, I'm gonna enjoy my weekend with my family. You guys have a great weekend. We'll talk soon.
And Lauren, are you still hosting that 7 hour space on Saturday tomorrow?
Going for a 7 hour one. Yeah, trying to set a new world record of space hosting.
Beautiful. I can only be there 6 hours and 45 minutes, but I'll try.
I appreciate that, sir.
Let's be friends on Monday.
Adios, amigos.
Did we miss Eric?
Oh, we missed Eric.
Eric,
Oh no, I hopped off and hopped back on. So wrap it up, man.
you sure?
God bless you all.
Sure.
I hope you have an incredible weekend.
Okay.
They're right. Be with your family. It's
Yeah,
all that
man.
matters.
Love you, buddy. Love you all.
Leave already.
No, just a little moment of silence for Jeff, and just love. That's what it's all about, everybody.
Yeah, no.